Okay, good morning, everyone. Fellow Commissioners, Chief McDonald, Inspector General Matthew Barragan, Managing Senior Assistant City Attorney Carlos de la Guerra, Madam Secretary, and members of the public. Today is Tuesday, July 28th, 2026. It is 9:30 a.m. This is a regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning. Please let the record reflect that Commissioners Shields, Tabor, and Scobin are present, and we have a quorum. Madam President?
Thank you. We welcome everyone attending this morning, both in person and online. We want to ensure all members of the public can access our meetings. So if you need any translation services or accommodations, we encourage you to contact the board secretary in advance of our meetings, as explained in our written agenda. These meetings are regular meetings between the board and the department. We welcome feedback from the public during the public comment period, which will be heard during item number 2 on the agenda. Public comment is your opportunity to address the board. You can speak to any item on the agenda or any matter within the jurisdiction of the Board of Police Commissioners. We will dedicate a total of 45 minutes to public comment. If you're called as a speaker, you will have up to 3 minutes to speak if you wish to speak on both agenda items and general public comment, as explained in the written agenda. While we welcome public attendance at our meetings, disruptive behavior will not be tolerated and will be cause for removal. You will receive just one warning, and if you continue disrupting the meeting, you will be asked to leave and be removed from the meeting. And before turning it over to item number 1, I want to apologize for those of you who came to the meeting last week or tried to access it online. We were forced to cancel the meeting because the microphones were not working. And when the microphones are not working, we cannot stream the meeting or record the meeting for future transmittal. We've taken steps to try to remedy this, so hopefully this won't happen in the future. But thank you for your patience. And with that, we can move to item number 1 on the agenda, the report of the Chief of Police, Chief McDonald.
Thank you, President Shields. Commissioners, good morning. Inspector General Barragan, City Attorney de la Guerra, and Executive Director Sibley. Today's report will cover the 2-week period since our last meeting on July 14th. I'll highlight key events, share our current crime stats, and provide an update on our current staffing levels. Since our last meeting, there have been no officer-involved shootings. As of today, the department has recorded 11 officer-involved shootings in 2026, compared to 26 during the same period in 2025, reflecting a 57.7% decrease for 2026. I'd like to provide a brief update regarding recent incidents associated with illegal street takeovers. On July 19th, officers in Southeast area responded to a street takeover near Imperial Highway and Compton Avenue involving approximately 70 vehicles blocking the roadway. During the response, officers located an abandoned vehicle fully engulfed in flames and shortly thereafter discovered a 19-year-old male suffering from a gunshot wound to the head. A second victim, an 18-year-old male, was located nearby with a gunshot wound to the leg. Detectives also identified a robbery victim who reported having her property forcibly taken during the incident. On July 20th, in Hollenbeck area, officers responded to a street takeover at Whittier Boulevard and Lorena Street. Upon arrival, officers heard gunfire and located 27-year-old male suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. The preliminary investigation revealed that the shooting occurred during an attempted chain snatch robbery that escalated into a physical altercation. More recently, on July 26th, officers responded to a street takeover at Haskell Avenue and Plummer Street at about 6 p.m. During that event, an 18-year-old female spectator was struck by a vehicle, suffering a traumatic injury to her leg. Later that evening, officers also responded to additional street takeovers at Century Boulevard and Avalon, Century Central Avenue and 120th, and Century and Main. These incidents underscore the significant public safety risks associated with illegal street takeovers, including shootings, robberies, reckless driving, and serious injuries to innocent bystanders. Los Angeles Police Department continues to aggressively address this issue through coordinated enforcement operations, intelligence-led investigations, and close collaboration with our regional law enforcement partners. We're identifying organizers and repeat offenders, pursuing criminal prosecution, and seeking vehicle impounds whenever authorized by law. Additionally, the department recently decentralized the street racing task force, placing greater responsibility and resources within the geographic areas. This approach allows area personnel who know their communities, recurring locations, and chronic offenders best to respond more quickly, conduct proactive enforcement, and develop localized strategies while still leveraging specialized resources when needed. This enhances our ability to disrupt illegal street takeovers before they escalate into serious acts of violence. Detectives remain actively investigating these incidents, and the department is committed to identifying those responsible and holding them accountable. I'd like to highlight an excellent collaborative investigation involving West Valley detectives, patrol personnel, and Metropolitan Division that resulted in the arrests of 4 individuals believed to be responsible for a series of residential burglaries. The investigation began following a residential burglary in Encino on July 15th, during which suspects forcibly entered a home and stole numerous valuables before fleeing. Through investigative efforts, detective identified individuals believed to be connected to the burglary crew and coordinated closely with Metropolitan Division personnel to locate and apprehend those responsible. As the investigation quickly progressed, officers conducted an enforcement operation that resulted in 2 suspects being taken into custody and 2 fleeing from law enforcement in a vehicle. As the suspects fled, they struck a patrol vehicle, assisting with the arrest. When the suspect's vehicle began to have mechanical issues, the suspect surrendered. Evidence recovered during the investigation was linked to the burglary, and investigators believe the group may be connected to additional residential burglaries throughout Valley Bureau. Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office reviewed the case and filed criminal charges against all 4 defendants. 4 defendants were charged with residential burglary, and 1 defendant was additionally charged with assault with a deadly weapon on a peace officer, as well as felony evading. This case demonstrates the value of coordinated investigative efforts between detectives and field personnel, as well as the department's continued commitment to identifying, arresting, and prosecuting individuals responsible for organized residential burglary activity that impacts communities throughout Los Angeles. Another example of outstanding collaborative police work occurred in the Olympic area with patrol officers and the drone as a first responder cadre. On July 16th, officers responded to a call of an assault with a deadly weapon at a community assistance center in Olympic area. During the investigation, officers learned that the victim had been standing outside the location when he was unexpectedly attacked from behind by a suspect armed with a metal pole that had a large piece of concrete attached to it. Suspect swung the concrete at the victim's head, hitting the victim in the shoulder. Later that same day, an officer from the DFR cadre had requested a patrol unit to respond to return to the location when they saw the suspect return. Patrol officers responded, located the suspect, and took him into custody without incident. The suspect was arrested and booked for attempted murder. On July 21st, Gang and Narcotic Division LA Impact Group concluded a significant fentanyl trafficking investigation targeting a suspected member of the Sinaloa cartel's drug trafficking network. Following an undercover investigation, detectives coordinated with the California Highway Patrol and their canine unit to stop a suspect's vehicle, resulting in the seizure of approximately 80,000 fentanyl pills. A subsequent search of the suspect's residence led to the recovery of an additional 230,000 fentanyl pills, bringing the total seizure to about 310 fentanyl pills. During the search, investigators also located children inside the residence, and the Department of Children and Family Services responded to ensure their safety. This investigation prevented hundreds of thousands of potentially lethal fentanyl pills from reaching our communities and underscores the department's ongoing commitment to disrupting major drug trafficking organizations responsible for fueling the fentanyl crisis in Los Angeles. I'd like to provide a final update regarding FIFA World Cup 2026 operations. With the tournament now concluded, I'm pleased to report that the Los Angeles Police Department successfully supported and secured 62 FIFA-related Fan Zone, Fan Fest, and Kick It in the Park events across the city since June 11th. Over the course of the tournament, the department documented 40 FIFA-related case reports and made 13 associated arrests. Notably, there were no reported incidents or arrests at any Fan Zone or Kick It in the Park location throughout the entire event. These results are a testament to the extensive planning, coordination, and professionalism demonstrated by our personnel and our public safety partners. Throughout the tournament, our officers remained flexible and responsive, balancing FIFA-related deployments while continuing to address both planned and unplanned events occurring throughout the city. Their ability to adapt to changing operational demands while maintaining exceptional service to our communities contributed significantly to the safe and successful conclusion of one of the largest international sporting events in the world. I want to thank all of our department personnel, our law enforcement partners, city departments, and public safety stakeholders whose dedication and teamwork helped secure a safe and welcoming environment for residents and visitors alike. Their efforts reflect the very best of public service and demonstrate LAPD's ability to successfully manage large-scale international events while continuing to meet the day-to-day public safety needs of the City of Los Angeles. While FIFA operations have concluded, the department continues to manage a variety of public safety responsibilities across the city. With that, I'll provide a brief update on recent protest activity. There were 3 protests in the city. On July 14th, approximately 70 people gathered in Central area near Olvera Street. On July 18th, approximately 45 people gathered at City Hall and the Federal Detention Center, and about 25 people gathered at Dodger Stadium. On July 25th, a crowd of approximately 200 people held a vigil and march within Central area. The event began with a gathering in front of City Hall and marched to Placita Olvera. There were no arrests made at any of the demonstrations. Overall, citywide crime trends remain favorable, with continued year-to-date reductions across every major crime category, including homicides, shootings, robberies, burglaries, and motor vehicle thefts. All analysis is based on offense count, except for homicide and victims shot through July 25th. Compared year-to-date to 2025, combined person and property crimes are down 11.4%, with persons crimes down 4.7%, and property crimes down 13.3%. Homicides have decreased 12.1%, or 17 fewer victims year-to-date. Victims shot are down 30.2%, or 183 fewer victims year-to-date. Aggravated assaults down 4.3%, or 374 fewer crimes. Robberies are down 4.8%, or almost 200 less robberies this year than last. Burglaries are down 28.8%. Residential burglaries are down 28.5% year-to-date. Non-residential burglaries are down 29.2%. Motor vehicle thefts are down 23.3% year-to-date, representing 2,720 fewer thefts compared to last year. The department's current staffing level stands at 8,566 sworn personnel and 2,387 civilian professional staff, as well as 357 reserve officers. Of our sworn workforce, 401 employees are currently on injured on-duty status, 25 on long-term sick or FMLA leave, and 292 working with duty restrictions, bringing the total to 718 sworn personnel, or about 8.4% of our workforce, who are not at full duty status. On the civilian side, 52 employees are on injured on-duty status, 45 on long-term sick or FMLA, and 97 are working with duty restrictions, totaling 194 civilian employees, or about 8.1% of the civilian workforce, not at full duty status. That concludes my report, Madam President.
Thank you, Chief. And I'll start with my fellow commissioners if you have any questions. Commissioner Scobin.
Good morning. Thank you for the report. 3 topics I'd like to discuss, Chief. First is street takeovers. Second is drones. And the third are crime stats reporting.
Right.
Street takeovers. Thank you for discussing them in your report. I saw the video, the one you referenced, and was actually horrified by the gruesome injury sustained by the female spectator. I'd like to ask for a formal presentation to the commission by a subject matter expert that discusses the dangerous criminal activity, including but not limited to department resources diverted from other important duties for street takeovers, the consequences of street takeovers, and frankly, what the public can do to assist us in eliminating street takeovers. Also, to the extent we have stats around them, it'd be good to look at those, especially since the department has made some decentralizing decisions.
Right.
It'd be interesting to understand how those work or not handling them.
Right.
2, drones. I read a report this past week in the Post that included information on the success we're having with the drone program. The article quoted department officials that stated drones responded to 3,000 calls last year, and they've already saved the department from responding to hundreds of unneeded calls for service. You were also credited in that article about prompting stations to cancel dispatches of officers about 11% of the time. They're impressive numbers that impact both efficiency and costs related to providing law enforcement services. So I'd like to request, to better understand these numbers, a report back to the commission on, 5 items, not limited to this, but the types of calls for which the drones have been deployed since inception, as well as the number of each type, the average time it takes to dispatch a drone, and also for the drone to arrive at scene, with the measurement beginning when a call for service is received, the types and number of calls for which the drone saved the department from having to respond to the call, the types and number of calls for which the drone allowed us to cancel dispatches of officers, and how much time elapsed between dispatch and cancellation. And when it's determined that the drone information either allows us to either not dispatch a call or cancel a call, what policy or procedure exists to contact the reporting party and inform them of the status? And if we do endeavor to make such contact, how is that captured and audited? And finally, any other information that the department feels would be relevant. The third and final item, crime stats reporting. Previously, we requested that the weekly personnel strength report be modified to reflect number of officers that were not fully available for duty, and you quickly did so. Thank you for that. I think it provides a much more accurate picture of where we're at. In that same spirit, I have some requests that I believe will enhance that with crime stat reporting. As I reviewed the crime stat report hyperlink on the agenda, I found that the format for the traffic stats section was far more conducive to comparison and interpretation of annual results than that of crime statistics. For example, in the traffic sections, both year-to-date numbers for 25 and 26 were expressed in actual numbers as well as a percentage increase and decrease. This is also true for comparison of the year-to-date comparison of 2024 to 2026, which I think gives us a clearer picture of frequency and trend. Whereas the crime stats, many of these categories do not show the raw numbers for year-to-date 25 or 26, only the percentage increase or decrease. It'd be helpful in terms of understanding and evaluating the data if format similar to the traffic section were used on the crime statistics. The one number from the crime report data I would recommend retaining and possibly adding to the traffic report is the actual number of the increase or decrease and not just the percentage. Okay. There's also a question I hear from time to time, the answer which I believe is important to include in the crime stats on a regular basis is while the numbers look excellent in a number of areas, how do they compare to LA County, the state, and frankly other areas in the United States? Especially after subtracting our numbers. I believe this type of comparison can help with factors such as right-sizing the department and measuring our relative effectiveness. Given this, I'm asking that the format of the crime stats be reviewed for conformity with my requests and hopefully even improvement beyond what I'm asking for. Additionally, hopefully no less than a monthly basis, where feasible, our crime stats be compared to Sheriff's Department, countywide, statewide, and national statistics, particularly after removing our numbers from at least countywide and statewide. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Commissioner Tabor.
Thank you, Chief. And I want to follow on to my fellow commissioner. Question with respect to both speed cameras recently deployed and whether they've had any effect at helping us identify areas where street takeovers have occurred and identify victims and or suspects in that process. And the same question for our drone program. Have we had the ability to deploy them during street takeovers, and what benefit or deficiency has occurred?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I'd have to get back to you on the speed cameras, whether they've had an impact on identifying street takeover places. Generally, the street takeovers occur over social media almost spontaneously. It's very quickly done and assembled. Bring in a large number of cars, block the surrounding intersections to prevent police from getting to the scene. So as a result, we are using our air support unit as well as our drones to be able to get in. Otherwise, it's nearly impossible to identify, get plates, identify the vehicles and the people who are driving these vehicles, any shots fired, any assaults that are occurring, robberies that are occurring, to be able to get that perspective that we don't otherwise have. So we are going to continue and expand our use of drones to be able to try and hold people accountable for the behavior in these street takeovers, and hopefully that'll work as a disincentive to continue doing them in the city. All tools, all technology that can be made available to deal with this. The things I mentioned today are just a sampling of what we're seeing in these street takeovers. We end up disrupting a lot that you never hear about, thankfully, because we do monitor the internet very closely to see when they're pre-planned and then be able to get out there and deter them. For those that we're not able to do that, we want to be able to have all the tools available to be able to keep people safe as best we can. Commissioner mentioned the video that's out there circulating. It's horrendous to see this young woman being struck by a vehicle and a person with her being knocked unconscious. Her wound is life-changing. Thank God that she made it. But this is the kind of thing that is completely uncontrolled, and it has to stop. You know, parents need to know where their kids are, what they're doing, and even if they're innocent out there just watching, they put themselves at great risk for inadvertently being hit by a vehicle like that situation or being shot, because we do see gang activity. We do see shootings now more frequently at these events.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
No further.
And then thank you, Chief, for the report. And my first question was also relating to the street takeovers, which does seem to be a rising problem in our area and neighboring areas. In addition to the things that you've talked about, has the department also been working with other parts of our city family to look at the design of intersections and see if there can be anything done there in certain areas to prevent it? I think, the county indicated that they're, trying to increase number of patrols and then also some of their structuring of their intersections.
Yeah, those would be probably very long-term adjustments that could be made, and people are losing their lives and being seriously injured in the moment. So we'll look at any partners we can get, any technology we can use, the physical infrastructure of the streets, the way they're configured. That would be something that would be, as you know, with the city budget, something that would take a very long time to have any kind of significant impact at all. But we're wide open to working with DOT, our partners, certainly the fire department and the others we work with on a regular basis, to be able to do whatever we can to try and curtail this.
Thank you. And I'd echo, in terms of a report back, just understanding a little bit more about, like, if for purposes, are there recurring areas? How can the divisions best respond to those areas? And if there's needed additional patrol, where do we get those additional patrol from, which is a problem? And that kind of goes to one thing that I had a question about with regards to recruiting. I attended the last graduation, and it was a smaller class, and I understand that because of the city budget, the department is essentially required to cap their academy classes by like 25 or so per session, which is a significant problem if there are people who are eligible, willing, wanting to come to the department, and then they are told they can't join, or they have to wait because it's easy for them to get picked up by other departments. So is there any end in sight or anything that we can do to try to help with that situation?
Certainly any advocacy we could get in working with the council, the CAO, to be able to talk about how we allocate these. The obvious reason for this is to try and get as much cost savings as they can, hire the same number of people a year, but defer the bulk of the hiring until the end of the fiscal year in order to save that money up front. But the reality, as you said, is the longer we wait, we lose the best candidates to other departments. Most people have applied to one or more departments, and if they get the job offer first, they're often in a position where they take that, and we have an opportunity cost there that can never be regained. And so I would say helping us in making our council partners aware of the issues that we're dealing with and what the implication of the strategies being employed are.
Yeah, and hiring can come in cycles, and so if there are, people graduating from, colleges, they might want to join sooner than that. So, kind of having an arbitrary cap per month is not, I think, the best for our recruiting prospects. I've gotten a few different kind of community member concerns that have been raised with me, some including relating to the department's use of social media. And I understand that the department is currently looking at and revising its social media policy to make sure, again, I know that the department has an official, social media account, but then there's a number of different accounts that are used across the division, and trying to make sure that everyone understands the goal of the use of social media as well as the guardrails that are in place, making sure that, all of the posts are, don't violate the law, are, appropriate. And then also, what's the purpose of it? To further the community relationship, not undermine it. And so
Exactly.
I look forward to the updated draft of social media policy coming to us. I've also heard some concerns about the process in which the commissions, and I think the chief's report comes out after an officer-involved shooting occurs. After we adjudicate it, it's announced here, and then, it's processed. And I never know exactly how long it takes, but I understand that there has been some backlog, has been some delay. So I'd ask, and I don't know exactly where the delay is. I understand the city attorney's office may have a pile of them reviewing kind of redactions of personnel information that we need to make sure it's done properly. But to the extent the department can kind of advocate for that to be processed as quickly as possible, because this is important for purposes of transparency, and we'd like those out as soon as possible.
No, thank you. And just for the people who are doing that, a sensitivity to the fact that those numbers I talk about every week, as far as deployed personnel who are sworn and professional civilian staff, who are often those that are tasked with these types of assignments, those numbers are getting lower and lower by the week, with no hiring in place for the foreseeable future on that side of the house. So I take my hat off to our civilian professional staff, who do an incredible job with an amazing workload to be able to get done what they do. They're really to be admired. So we will do the best we can, certainly with the personnel we have available. But I just wanted to make that sensitivity public, because they are doing incredible work.
Thank you. And I echo their great work, and just want to make sure that we are as responsive as we can to the community on some of these issues that are of really high importance to the commission and the department. Okay, with that, moving to item number 2 on the agenda, public comment. Madam Secretary, please call on the first speaker.
The first speaker is Megan.
So Jeff Scobin will say he's horrified by the gruesome injuries of a participant of street takeovers. But Jeff, have you ever said that you're horrified by the injuries or deaths inflicted by LAPD? No, because that's just the cost of doing business for you and your auto dealership, which profits enormously from its longtime relationship with LAPD. Street takeovers are a rising problem for Russia, but you know what's not a rising problem for Russia is LAPD's continued collaboration with ICE operations in LA via surveillance and data sharing. Russia is also hearing community concern about LAPD's social media use. Just curious if you're hearing concern from the community about anything else, Russia. And Rasha, being the optics queen that she is, she says she needs reports faster for the purposes of transparency, and yet your department lets FOIA requests by community members go unaddressed for months and years. There are many items on the consent agenda item today, so many that you ran out of letters in the alphabet. It's called the consent agenda because they are items that you won't even think about or look into at all. You just put your rubber stamp of approval, and yet some light Googling as well as research done by organizations and people actually providing police accountability, reveals the depth of depravity of those supposedly non-controversial agenda items. You will approve a $100K grant for the Alcohol Policing Partnership, in which the LAPD uses minor decoys. And as the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition points out in their report, A History of LAPD Domestic, Sexual, and Child Abuse, the LAPD has a persistent pattern of child abuse over time, starting with the 1970s with the LAPD Explorer program, in which an investigation found that at least 6 cops had sex with at least 16 teenage participants in that program. In 1994, Officer Marvin Jackson was arrested for sexually assaulting a 16-year-old explorer while knowingly HIV positive. In 2005, Officer George Stan, the LAPD veteran who ran the San Fernando Valley Explorer program for a year, was arrested for molesting 7 children, 2 of whom were in that Explorer program. There are dozens of other examples of LAPD raping children, including their own relatives. And let's not forget about the Santa Monica Police Activities League, where sworn civilian Eric Uller abused over 200 children for 2 decades. And while that wasn't specifically an LAPD program, it was founded by Earl Suthers, who was the last president of this commission before he slunk away in shame. And he never condemned that abuse. And fun fact, Eric Uller reported directly to then police chief James Butts, who protected him when people reported his suspicious behavior, including viewing child porn at work. And now he's the mayor of Inglewood and helping cover up the murder of Brian Bostic. Fuck the LAPD. Shame on all of you.
Next, we have Steve Rogers.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I don't know what happened last week, but it looked really bad, where the microphones weren't working or something to that effect. Just a suggestion, and there's a letter in the public comments that should be posted. I don't see them posted today, but I did submit one that touches on that issue. Technical difficulties do happen. Just shut down the audio immediately, because what you basically have are hecklers and people that are trying to take over the airwaves and making things look and sound bad. So if you do have technical difficulties, address it right away. You really shouldn't be having those kind of difficulties, but they do happen sometimes. Social media was mentioned. Now, LAPDonline.org, as I've mentioned in times before, is really underutilized. And the social media policy or whatever that was being referred to, I'll refer you to something right now. If you look under events on the website, lapdonline.org, there is one event that goes back to 2024. That's unacceptable. It looks like nobody is really providing oversight on the website. That should be the primary means of communicating with the public, with all the communities of the city of Los Angeles. We have National Night Out is upon us, August 4th. I brought this up last year. I don't see what's going on. Maybe some divisions of LAPD are doing some things. Who would know? We shouldn't have to look on Facebook or some other platform. We should be able to look at the official LAPDonline.org website. This is a major problem. The lack of communication in many ways. Try calling the police station. I called a senior lead office, Crow office in San Fernando Valley. A volunteer voicemail outgoing is there. Do you know how long it took for a callback? A week and a half? Is that acceptable? What do you think is acceptable when the public calls the police? How long should they wait? I want to see community policing being implemented. That's your job, Police Commission. See that it's being implemented. It's unacceptable to have this kind of what it looks like either indifference or ineptitude. Community policing has to be held up on both sides. Thank you to all the police officers out there doing the job under very difficult circumstances. You are appreciated. God bless you. God bless LAPD. And God save Los Angeles. I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
The next speaker is Andrew G.
All righty. 11 minutes and 4 seconds on the clock, please. So the chief's report should be limited to 3 minutes at every meeting. If it exceeds 3 minutes, we should be able to match the amount of time the chief takes. Regardless of how long the chief takes to give his report, everyone should be able to speak both in person and on the phone. He's shown no willingness whatsoever to moderate his report at all. He's just rambling continuously about stuff. It's like, okay, is there an end to his report already? So I do suggest a few modifications to the procedures for these meetings to help reduce his time a little bit. So now, exactly 3 minutes after his report starts, a loud foghorn should sound that will drown out his voice and will also wake Tabor up. If he continues to talk, you should install a trapdoor and drop him in the trapdoor so we can't hear him speak anymore. So that way that will force him to shut up and we can move on to the meeting and start telling you about how terrible this department is. So we've got like 28 consent agenda items or something like that. You ran out of letters of the alphabet because you keep canceling these meetings. You keep insisting, oh, we have technical difficulties that only occur when a meeting is about to start. What a coincidence. They only occur when the meeting is about to start. Like, that's such a coincidence, isn't it? So I can't even possibly get through all these consent agenda items, but just touching on a few of them, we've got $140,000 for uniforms. That's absurd. It's donation, I guess. We have $12,000 donation for the Heart of LAPD 2026 Wellness Walk. The LAPD has absolutely no heart whatsoever. What are you talking about? We got cadet program stuff so that you can indoctrinate teenagers into policing while cops sexually assault the teenagers. We've got $5,000 for a holiday party. Another $1,000 for a holiday party. You've got a headquarters facility enhancements. So I think you should hold off on these headquarters facility enhancements until you start letting us wait inside in the building, because these are paid for by the taxpayers. I mean, it looks like this is a donation, but I'm guessing there's going to be some department money spent to this too. You know, I got a nice sunburn out there this morning, so you make us wait out in the sun when there's a perfectly air-conditioned lobby we can just wait in, or we can just come in the room. Why do you need to hold us back so long? You need 10 cops surrounding us before you can let us in? I can't even possibly get through all these consent agenda items today. But, you know, LAPD keeps assisting ICE, lying about it. Cancel Flock, cancel all the ALPRs, fire McDonnell, and why don't you all just resign too? Clearly aren't.
Next we have Mirsham. Mirsham, you're on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Every single week, this commission hears testimony about the cult of Scientology. Every single week, you are presented with first-hand accounts, documented evidence, books, statements, and video recordings that raise serious concerns about abuse, coercion, intimidation, and people being prevented from leaving. And yet, you have done nothing. The public sees accusations brought before this commission week after week, and despite the sheer volume of information, there is no visible indication of a thorough investigation into what is happening behind those blue walls. You have been shown video that has been presented as depicting a person being physically restrained while trying to leave. You have heard testimony from former members describing human trafficking, financial exploitation, forced labor, family separation, intimidation, and psychological abuse. You have been given books documenting all these allegations in extraordinary detail. How much more evidence needs to be brought to your attention before these allegations are investigated? People have died in connection with Scientology under circumstances that have generated significant public concern. Some of them are publicly available information. Families have been broken. Ex-members continue to come forward at a great personal risk. They only ask for one thing, that LAPD investigate these allegations. The people inside those buildings deserve to know that someone is willing to look beyond the walls. How many people have to come forward before you act? Also, Scientology lawyer Kendrick Moxon, I am continuing to report you to the bar for sending defaming letters to the city officials and LAPD, calling us Nazis and criminals. You can suck it. That's all.
Jonathan Foster.
On the discussion. I must be able to comment for 2 minutes on the discussion. That's the Brown Act.
So I'm supposed to get 2 minutes, but they've done this. Quick comment. Melt temperature for gold, 1,948 degrees is the year Israel became incorporated. And Jesus, thank you. Let's see, Jim, I found the number. It was in 1981 when you were hired, there were only 6,300 officers. Yeah, I couldn't find the video, but I found the text. I did the... And I wanted to talk a few meetings ago. There was a Toulouse on an OIS in Iraheta. And the Toulouse guy, if you remember, there was somebody, it was a girl keying the guy's car, and the guy got out with the gun and was pointing it. But then the officer showed up and they shot him because he had the gun on the sidewalk. But I found it amazing that the officer was at the scene when it happened. And that's happened a lot, actually, in the 7 years I've been here. I've noticed that the police department show up right when somebody's got a gun out. It's happened a few times. And then Iraheta, I just saw dedication and bravery there. Then, let's see, on Shodang, what is the CHP's protocol if the CHP sees somebody in the far left lane and the cop stops? What does the CHP do? Because that's what should be the LAPD policy. But I wanted to say this about Shodang, and I wasn't done. It showed he could crack a joke. It showed that the LAPD does care because he cared. LAPD is concerned. They want to help. The LAPD wants to aid. They want to have better outcomes. The public is valued. Does not have an intention to harm. Duty above oneself. The epitome of what the values of the police officer, human beings that make up the department are. Shodang. He was the fine example of the moment. So, I guess this last one, if I can get to it, and that is that the LAPD ICE interaction. What should happen is Donald John Trump should be paying the LAPD for the hours that the LAPD works for Donald. Donald needs to pay the LAPD for all those hours. Should not be paid by the taxpayer of LA. Should be paid by Donald. And here's a picture of illegal aliens killed. There's Jamil Shaw Jr. I know the brightness is down, but that's what we're stopping. These citizens from being killed.
Next, we have Audit LA.
Good morning. Miriam, that's a tough one to follow because she hit everything spot on, but I'm just going to try to add to that. Okay, I spoke to the LAFD PSO about the incident on July 8th, and you heard some of the screaming. I sent you the video. And they're like, they actually told me, oh, it's above our pay grade because it's dealing with the religion. And I'm like, no, it's because it's dealing with Scientology. Why is everyone so afraid? I am requesting, demanding, whatever you want to call it, it needs to be investigated. We've been coming for years telling you about how they trap people. They don't let them just escape. I have witnessed myself people being pulled back in. Laura has spoken up and saying she was dragged as a child back, into the confinement. So we need to know, A, whether or not that was a person trying to escape. B, we need to know if it was someone having a psychotic break because they don't allow any kind of mental health help. I do see that LAFD did show up, but, what was the outcome? Because is it an outsider that came in? And if so, it appears that there was an excessive use of force by people who only have guard cards. And so much, we need answers to this. This goes to trust. Okay, we want to know that people either inside or outside are safe because they act like they own that street and they are tyrannical on that street. They're guards. They think they're cops. They're not. Okay. I also want to talk about the children being abused. The first Megan brought up. Oh, I'm glad she brought all that up because how many times have we been coming and telling you that James Richardson, okay, who is a high-level Scientology security, is on your clergy council. He married an underage girl. First of all, she was trying to run away and escape. I'm going to say allegedly because, but she ran away to escape, okay? And he brought her back and then coerced the mother to let him marry her, okay? She didn't want to. Finally, she was coerced. They said yes. They took them to Vegas because California, they would have had to go through a psychiatric evaluation, and they would never allow that. Okay, and this guy who's, that's how predatory is that? He is on your clergy council in Hollywood, and then around all these kids, right? And then that ties into the cameras. Okay, like they have like an excessive amount. If you think LAPD or the city has an amount of cameras, go check how much cameras and microphones. I believe even flock cameras that they have at Scientology. And I hear the Hollywood division can't really get them upset because they are allowed to come and help solve their crimes, looking at the extensive, why they can basically see everywhere within Hollywood with their camera systems. And so they can't get them mad.
The next speaker is Tran Son Ha.
Good morning, Chip. Good morning, all people here, and love everybody. And I know some of you in here don't like me, but it's okay, But the thing, I'm here for it's better for America with the LAPD. We will, nobody fight for America, but I'm here for that. I demonstration in Huntington Beach here every week. I put the big sign. I say I am a lot better than Donald Trump for all American people. But a lot of you, when they look at the side, they say I'm crazy. Yeah, it look like crazy. But if someone is telling me about my history, remember I say in here, I have my history and my story. And in the whole world is better for everybody, but they scared talking about me. Okay, so, but I'm here. Thank you for the Jim, Chief Jim McDonough. Thank you everybody, and please support me. You have to support me, and we will do better for America. But trust me, if nobody can do it, they just make us fighting all the time. It destroys America. Look at it. Look at the mental health crisis all over USA. They don't care what you're talking. They don't care. Nobody. Then remember, I say, like the president and USA Supreme Court and USA Medicare and healthcare, USA Healthcare Central. They not protect American people. It's all about the business. And lie, killing everybody. They don't care. I know they don't care Donald Trump either. It's very dangerous. But I hear with you, we're gonna tell the worldwide corporation, say, hey, we America, stop killing us. Lie, killing us is very dangerous. They don't want you talk about it. I'm very scared. I look at when I walk on the street. I look at the mental health is everywhere. I know they don't care you when you talk to them. They don't care, but they care me. It have to be respected. It's good for us. I'm not here for I come here, nobody pay me. I'm just here for America. Trust me, again, if you support me, you will change America better for everybody. We love it. Thank you, Chief Jim McDonald. Thank you, everybody. Love you.
The next speaker is Grace.
Well, this Thursday, the Office of Inspector General is holding a so-called public listening session on ALPRs. Listening to what? For over a year, survivors, immigrants, sex workers, Skid Row residents, and community members have come before you, documenting exactly what these systems do. So while you schedule a listening session, LAPD is already back behind closed doors negotiating to expand its partnership with Flock. How many more times do we have to explain the same violence? How many more families have to be kidnapped and deported? How many more women have to be stalked by police? How many more people have to be terrorized before you admit this technology is working exactly as it was designed? You already know what ALPRs produce. In Warwick, Colorado, a black mother, her 6-year-old daughter, and their family were forced at gunpoint onto scorching pavement because an ALPR falsely matched her SUV to a stolen motorcycle. In New Mexico, a 12-year-old child was handcuffed after an ALPR misread a single digit on a license plate. Across the country, people have had guns pointed at their heads because police treat an algorithm as probable cause. And when the cameras work exactly as intended, the violence doesn't stop. It simply becomes more precise. In Milwaukee, an officer secretly used Flock more than 120 times to track his romantic partner and dozens more times to track her former partner. The detective assigned to investigate him was later arrested for abusing a very same Flock system to stalk people himself and secretly placing a GPS tracker on someone's vehicle, which we know LAPD is very familiar with. In just a matter of months, at least 18 officers in Georgia have been arrested for abusing Flock data just in one state, usually to stalk romantic interests. This is not the result of a few bad apples. Police don't face consequences even when they murder people in broad daylight. Why would anyone believe they can be trusted with a nationwide surveillance system that records where we sleep, who we love, where we seek healthcare, and where we organize? This violence is not a glitch in the system, it is the system. And this commission cannot claim ignorance. You knew this history when LAPD first partnered with Flock. You knew it when that partnership continued, and now despite every warning, LAPD is negotiating with Flock again. The public has already spoken. The evidence is already overwhelming. Another listening session is not accountability, it is bureaucratic delay. Every day you refuse to act is another day you legitimize a surveillance infrastructure that criminalizes black and brown communities, stalks women, targets abortion seekers and sex workers, spies on youth and young people, kidnaps immigrants, and expands the power of the stalker state. Shut down LAPD's partnerships with Flock Safety and all ALPRs companies now. No guardrails, no reforms, shut it all down now.
The next speaker is Quinn.
Two weeks ago, Jeff, you made this comment during your ALPR presentation, the presentation on Flock. Quote, how sensitive this information is, how improperly it can be used in the hands of the wrong person. Any recommendation to either limit within the department who has access to the data? Unquote. And then Randall Goddard from the LAPD said, quote, so one of the critical things of being a law enforcement officer, no matter where you are, is access to databases. And we have access to much more sensitive data. So at some point, we're trusting a police officer to go out there to enforce the laws, to know when to use deadly force. And ultimately, we've got to trust our police officers. That's a quote from Randall Goddard. Jeff, you asked that question because you revealed you also know something we've all known. The police are dangerous. The police are killers. The police are murdering us. They cannot be trusted. You said it yourself when you asked for the information to be limited. You said that the information is dangerous in the wrong hands. So you suggested a limit to the department's access. It's almost like you're finally able to admit admit that LAPD's hands are the wrong hands. Flock and AOPRs are a weapon, one LAPD mounted and aimed at Angelenos with the intention to separate parents from their children, to abduct, detain, and deport. AOPRs are the streamliner of sensitive information, gathering info so that LAPD can stalk women, their exes, their love interests, and their friends, where we go, who we eat with, where we live, everything. LAPD is the wrong hands. They're the wrong hands when you arm LAPD with guns. They're the wrong hands when you arm LAPD with AOPRs. When you killed Linda Becerra Moran last year after she called LAPD for help, or when ICE's Brian Palacios was granted impunity and immunity by LAPD after he murdered Keith Porter on New Year's Eve. That's who you trust when you arm LAPD with weapons. That's who you trust when you arm LAPD with Flock. Quote from Jeff once more, "You know how improperly it can be used in the hands of the wrong person." How many times do we have to tell you that Flock's AOPR data has been used by LAPD to criminalize sex workers, to abduct and detain undocumented folks, to steal our neighbors and our vendors right off the street because you arm the wrong person every time. With where we go, with who we love, you allow LAPD the access to the information that is killing us. And so when we demand an end to Flock safety, when we demand an end to all automatic license plate reader programs, it's because we demand an end to murder. Fuck all of you.
The next speaker, Kate. Kate.
I'm a senior high school student, and I see every day the effects of AI. The AI surveillance with Flock cameras that are destroying communities, that has been spying on children and criminalizing families. LAPD claims that Flock is for the safety of all civilians, but this is how we've actually seen it be used. It is in more than 100 public schools to criminalize youth and their families and spy on them to unjustly put them in prisons. People are being falsely identified and eventually being separated from their children. This is why AI can work with ICE and LAPD, but will never serve and protect the people. Because does AI surveillance protect schools, or do they turn them into prisons? This is not only paving the path to the death of our knowledge, but also the death to our land. As people in Los Angeles surrounded by cities and homes, we may not be able to see the AI data centers being built in the deserts that extract every last drop of our water resources, but the owners of these corrupt corporations continue to fund the very thing that will burn our land. When we look at our future, if AI continues to be used to surveil and teach the people, where do real people stand? Where is our land in that? And where is the protection of the youth that will build the future? Because all Flock and other AI surveillance has done is destroy communities, minority communities, but the majority of people. Flock profiles and targets people with no real evidence. The welfare of us should be in the hands of the people that serve us, which is our community and not the police. And I'd like to see that happen. Shut down the Flock cameras and prioritize real community safety, and end AI surveillance, fund a future that gives students a genuine place in it, and protect the people by listening to what actually will.
The next speaker, Rio. Rio. Is there Rio?
Hi, I'm also a student in LAUSD, and I'm deeply concerned by the Los Angeles Police Department and their collaboration with Flock Safety. Under our constitutional rights, some information on citizens is confidential. You say that repeatedly when we submit public records requests and are denied because you claim the information is confidential. Meanwhile, through Flock, our personal data is abused without our consent. Your contract with Flock Safety is just another example of LAPD getting involved in places you don't need to be. Being an LAPD officer on the street scares me. Seeing Flock cameras at intersections at my school at the rec center scares me. Your institution and partners terrify me inside of the place I live. These cameras are being used to abduct my friends, villainize trans kids like me, criminalize students in school. Flock devices are installed in more than 100 school systems across the United States, feeding us into prisons, putting us at risk of police violence and abuse that we do not deserve. You need to stop targeting already marginalized communities and put an end to the surveillance state that is ruining our lives, which means forever ending all collaboration with Flock Safety. This is how your future leaders feel. This is what we need. We never consented to this stalking.
The next speaker, Milo.
Astronomical blessings.
I am a high school student and fellow Angelino. Today, I would like to talk to you about Flock Safety, which is anything but safe. First and foremost, these stalling devices are major privacy and data violations. The people who are being recorded, including children and youth, cannot consent to their images being taken, especially when they often aren't even aware of it. And even though Flock likes to flaunt that it is totally private, the data collected can be sold to private companies and used in generative AI without anyone's consent. This violates my right to privacy that you owe me. Secondly, ICE has been proven to use Flock and other similar camera tech to track and hunt people down. And on top of that, you, the police, share your database with ICE and DHS. This destroys any chance of our great city being a sanctuary to migrants. There's no good reason to track people like this, to scare and mistreat our citizens. I deserve to walk down the street without being watched like I'm some criminal. I deserve to feel safe in my community. You're meant to protect and serve, right? Then protect me from these devices. I mean, hell, look around the room at the quotes that the police are meant to live by. Respect our people. Serve our communities. ALPRs are the antithesis to everything you supposedly stand for. A disrespect and an attack on the Los Angeles community. So please, board and fellow citizens in this room, hear my demands. Ban ALPRs, ban Flock.
Cairo.
I am here today to express my concerns on Flock cameras. Flock cameras are nothing but spying devices. If they're meant to be beneficial and prevent crime, tell me why I feel unsafe and scared. Flock cameras and ALPRs take photos of everything in sight. This includes families and their children. LAPD says that Flock cameras are used to see and watch over traffic. If so, tell me, why have they been found in children's gymnastic rooms and playgrounds? Why have they been placed in schools and pools? What about Jewish community centers? I myself am an older sibling. If I found out that cameras were placed in my brother's school or my sister's gym or the public pool that we go to, I would be pissed. Why can't you keep the cameras on the freeway? Why not on the streets where they belong? Flock safety employees have even been caught accessing camera footage connected to these sensitive areas to use as a sales pitch to market Flock. Now that you know this, I and many others demand that you end all partnerships with Flock and ALPRs. Who's to say that these cameras aren't being used by pedophiles to prey on the innocent? If you truly cared about the public, you would listen to our demands. By law, anyone who helps, encourages, or defends a criminal is also considered a criminal under the California Penal Code Section 31. You too are aiding these pedophiles and creeps, which makes you a part of the problem. If I still haven't convinced you, let me ask you something. Would you like it if your families were preyed on, spied on? Would you like it if your children were being stalked from school? Okay? I doubt it. So on behalf of the public, shut down Flock and ALPRs now. And God forbid I find any of your officers or Flock workers spying on my little siblings.
Rava.
Hi guys, it's my second time here, and still, this is genuinely laughable. The space is genuinely laughable. How is it that you guys sit here for hours every Tuesday morning and don't do shit? And I wish I could laugh. I wish I could laugh, but I can't laugh when the same officers in this room, your precious LAPD, the same boys in blue, kill and abuse people on your dime. They might fire the bullet, but you load the gun. You load the gun with every $1,000 donation to a cadet program that trains killers. You load the gun with every consent item. You load the gun with every internal audit. You load the gun every time you say LAPD doesn't collaborate with ICE. When we know DHS called 911 and asked LAPD 8 times this month in the month of June. You load the gun when you grant the killer of Keith Porter with immunity. You load the gun every time the families of those killed by LAPD, the family of Jeremy Flores, the people grieving Linda Becerra Ramon, and every time they come and beg you for justice and you look them in the eye and you sign off on more equipment, you write off more officer-involved shootings, you write off the community demanding that Flock, a tool used to track people down to kidnap and kill them. You load the gun with every renegotiation, you load the gun with every MOU with Axon and Motorola and every other ARPR. We are done asking you for justice. They have lied to each of us from the second that we are born that justice comes from the police. But we know justice will never come from the people shooting the gun or you, the people loading it. We know police are only here to serve and protect property and power, never people. Justice, safety, protection, and service comes from the community, from the people. We know that justice comes when we fight. We will fight to shut down Flock. We will fight to shut down every contract you have with ALPRs. We will fight to take away every single tool you use to hurt us. We will fight for justice and we will win it. And let me tell you, it's not going to come from Matthew or Jim or Russia. It's going to come from us getting organized and fighting back. Shut down Flock now. I am done asking.
Hamid Khan.
How's that for public input? All power to the youth. So just want to go back to the whole performance we saw on July 14th because the meeting was canceled last week. And I'm calling it a performance by Randy Goddard, Gialamas, or whatever his name is, and Scobin. So building on Q's point, let's go back about guardrails and let's talk about a little bit of history over here as well. 2014, LAPD officers break antennas on 90 patrol cars on dash cameras. Now, dash cameras were installed as a part of the consent decree. And out of the 300 patrol cars in 2010, 2011, they broke down these antennas and tampered with them on 90 of those patrol cars. They're going to guardrails, and there were enough guardrails. When you go through the documentation of those of the dash cameras, supervisors will check it, handover will happen, yada yada yada. This guardrail, that guardrail, seventh guardrail, and everything else. Let's move on. 2015, LAPD misclassifies 25,000 crime reports. 25,000 over a course of a few years. LAPD misclassifies these crime reports. So all the crime reports and everything else that we hear from Jim McDonald, well, how much has been misclassified and how much is a fucking lie? Let's think about it. This is all facts. This is all coming up. We're not kind of whipping it out. 2020, California Department of Justice revokes LAPD's statewide access to LAPD-generated records in CalGang databases following a falsification and misconduct. LAPD, which pioneered gang injunctions, gang databases, and within a span of about less than 20 years, the Cal DOJ revokes the LAPD's access to CalGang databases. This is the history we're talking about. Let's go to 2021, when LAPD, after we've been fighting back and pushing back and demanding to know whether LAPD is using facial recognition technology, they lied meeting after meeting after meeting until it was released that in 2021, that over the course of 2009 till 2021, LAPD had used facial recognition technology 29,817 times. So now you're asking us, and then, let me just add a little bit more stuff to it too, that we talk about, and Megan talked about LAPD's history of sexual assault and domestic violence. Well, how fucked up is it? And if you just want to go in there, it says that, okay, LAPD has a documented history of structural and individual cases involving sexual assault and sexual harassment and misconduct. And all that Jeff Scobin had to say, speaking from both sides of his mouth, that yes, we are going to get public input and let's approve the IG's report. But hey, Goddard, make sure all the T's are crossed, make sure all the I's are dotted. So this is the fuckery, this is the facade, this is the illusion that they're trying to create. But we're getting the public input.
Thank you. The next speaker, Michael Eckerman.
Nothing is going to improve until we get criminal investigators from the National Guard to look into police misconduct. This is because local government does not have the capability to fix itself. Any delay in asking the governor to conduct a military-level investigation will cause unnecessary suffering. And yes, people are being killed. And yes, it's much worse than you probably think. I can think of a couple reasons why officials or members of the public wouldn't demand this highest level of oversight. They might be threatened or physically prevented from making this demand. I am certain that this is happening and is widespread, and unfortunately, this is a legitimate reason. Another reason is that people have been persuaded to remain silent on this point. I am convinced that this is also widespread. However, it is not a legitimate reason for failing to ask for a National Guard level investigation of police violation of basic rights. Finally, you might just think I'm wrong, but the good thing is that making the request costs nothing and will make you look conscientious. On a different topic, I saw a news item about the LAPD being understaffed. The solution is the same. Ask the governor to supplement staff with National Guard personnel. I doubt you will, though. The public knows this problem is self-inflicted. And as to Commissioner Scobin's comment today, recall what I said a couple months back. There are entire categories of crimes which are not included in the LAPD statistics reports, including kidnapping, bribery, prostitution, arson, and animal abuse.
Madam President, we're at 45 minutes and we have 8 cards left. How would you like to proceed?
Let's call the next speaker, please.
Okay.
The next speaker, Charmaine Elizabeth Johnson.
Good morning. Firstly, when I came in, your officers indicated robbing me for my bag by delaying my bag through the scanner. They have actually opened my company in Los Angeles using my picture online. They have employees. They're using my intellectual property. I'm an artist. It's copywritten. It's protected. They are legally using my intellectual property and running my businesses. I came in 2024 and I came to connect with someone in the LAPD, stole my memoir from the Central Library. They have dispensed me drugs. There was a pretense for release on Juneteenth. I was dispensed drugs and I didn't make it to the memoir event, and in result of that, an Officer Silva, gave me a ticket. He put the incorrect information on the ticket deliberately to fake my identity, saying I have green eyes and I'm 5'5", I'm 5'8", with hazel eyes. That is to do court fraud. I had a court date set for April Fool's Day. A man went to the court hearing instead of me to perpetrate being me. The police have married my name against my will. They have performed fraud through the courthouse. They have opened my company. They have my sister illegally in the country using my identity, bank, social security number, passport. I've reported battery, attempted murder over the year. Nothing has been done. They're collaborating with the corrupt FBI and actually committing the fraud. And I'm being injected nightly, sedated with date rape drugs. They're giving me cancer on my toes like they've done to a reggae artist previously, but I was given cancer in my toenails, injected a chip into my body, I filed a court hearing, and you had Officer June and Stafford. They were in the library, in Central Library, and during that, my USB went missing with the court hearing on it, and a bag with my belongings with phones. You know, I'm being scammed by the LAPD. They are functioning my life. They have my employees working my business, using my company. I'm on the streets like a bum. They've got me like a nigger. Have a good day.
The next speaker, Lara FM.
Okay. Hi. So I'm here. We come here all the time. I try to hold my emotional trauma from my childhood, but it gets triggered every single time I come here. I can't help it. You talk about Flock. You're talking about all these. Scientology has the most highest insane camera structure. They have cameras all over Los Angeles because they own buildings. They have all kinds of entities being front groups of Scientology that have cameras on them, whether they're a privately owned house. If it's a Scientologist, they have cameras on them. Cameras everywhere across LA. What do you think Scientology's doing as a blackmailing organization when the police officers are caught on Scientology's cameras doing stuff illegal? You think there's not any sort of sway or negotiation when you have James Richardson on your clergy council? Jim, you have James Richardson, who he's a pedophile. He married a 16-year-old, was dating her at 14. She tried to leave. In Scientology, they call it a blow. James Richardson, the head of security, who runs all these cameras, who has all this blackmail on all kinds of people in Hollywood. He's the one in charge of this. He's the one who got her back she was leaving. She was trying to get out, got her back, and then married with major coercion from him to his mother. The mother did not want it to happen. He married her, and he's now the head. He's going to your police graduations. Did you see him there, Rashad? Did you see? He is literally infiltrated on your boards. He's the one who sends all the fucking criminal information, blackmailing information to Kendrick Moxon, to David Miscavige, the head of Scientology. These people attack people like me who were born and raised, forced fucking slavery and forced abuse, not only to myself, to other people. How is it because Karen Bass went on their stage? Is it because Karen Bass isn't giving you guys fucking orders to do psych evaluations? Do a psych evaluation on the security guards. Ask them if they think it's okay to physically take somebody if they don't listen to them and force them to do something. They do. It's part of their training routines. This is what James Richardson is trying to recruit your fucking LAPD to become Scientologists. This has been going on for 70 years. My whole family's destroyed. There are so many kids that come to the Zoom calls, that call in, that were 40 years old now. This is still happening in the Sea Org. Your LAPD, your city is so corrupt. It looks normal, but they all need psych evaluations. For that investigation, for that kid that was held by security guards. They all need psych evaluations.
The next speaker, William Good.
Good morning. Jim, I heard you had a staff meeting yesterday, and Brent McGuire got up there and said, don't leak out any information about this meeting. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, it failed. Now, talking about Flock, we ask about access, and think about who used to be the number 2 of the LAPD. That was Al Labrada, the guy who was stalking a woman with air tags. If he didn't get caught, he'd be the chief right now, most likely. So obviously he would have access to it. So, you know, at the end of the day, there isn't really any limitations on the types of people that will have access to the information. Now, speaking of Flock, you know, by rule, you hid the Flock contract or the MOU from us for years. But during that time, you were supposed to file that Flock MOU with ethics. I reached out to ethics. They agreed. You were supposed to do it. You failed. You hid that contract from ethics for you personally for 7 quarters. So I filed a complaint on him on Thursday. Friday morning, your asses run up there to ethics to try to amend them, but you can only do it to 1. The other 6, you're going to owe $15,000 on, Jim. And I found 4 more. And I'm going to keep on finding more violations until we recoup your whole fucking salary. Now, Rashi asked about social media policy. That guy right over there, Robert Port, is the guy who's responsible for all social media policy. He had a proposal when he was trying to get the position that he was going to consolidate all around him, right? Now, who is Robert Port? You know, Robert Port is the guy who was brought in to, quote, bring a spit shine to the LAPD's image. Isn't that right, Jim? His own paperwork says that, to help the reputation. And what has he done since he came in? He's reached out to nothing but right-wing outlets, California Post and Fox News, the ones that came in here, caused those problems, the ones that went after Jason Reedy back here. They went to his house, took pictures of the house, and posted it in the paper with no context. And then while he's holding his kid, referred to his kid as the wrong gender. That's the work of Robert Port. You know, right? And then the worst part about it with Robert Port, you know, he's been spreading a rumor about me 2 weeks ago that I'm unhelpful in my son's case. My son was murdered in 2021. And for a year, they jerked me around. They dropped my calls. I went through 3 investigators without them even telling me about it. They did no work on it at the same time. 2 weeks after his death, they launched an investigation into me for eavesdropping, arrested me 3 times in the next 4 months, arrested me on some bullshit 422 charge. You talk about social media. They went and posted an hour-long video of my arrest on YouTube, including me inside a jail cell in the back of a car. And then they followed up with a second video, 90 minutes. That's what the social media looks like, Rasha. And so when you look at how it's being misused, understand, Jim personally brought in Robert Port to do this dirtbag stuff. And this is, at the end of the day, this is Karen Bass's LAPD. Fuck you, Jim. And your family.
The next speaker, Thandiwe.
Next speaker.
Thandiwe.
Mr. Good, you've had an opportunity to speak. That's your first warning.
That's my fucking warning to you, Rob. And Jim. And Jim, don't think I don't know about your fucking daughter working for Tom Giraldi, who's in jail now.
Mr. Reedy. Megan, that is your first warning.
I'm not trying to say good morning or nothing like that. I honestly don't really have much to say. I feel like it's not worth it to try and appeal to y'all's conscience. Like, this guy right here, the one right there underneath Serve, he can barely stand up straight. This guy, Robert Port, he's just making all kinds of faces. This guy, you guys are so transparent. Like, it's just really funny that you think you're, I don't know, like, serving us this fantasy, this facade, and that we're just believing it. But I can see y'all. Like, I literally see you. I see you. I see the type of people that you are. I see the type of people that you are, that you can listen to people come up here and allege that your colleagues are rapists and pedophiles and abusers, and you're just fine with that. That doesn't mean anything to you. So now I know what kind of body I'm talking to. I finally get that it's not worth it to appeal to any sort of moral human feeling within you. And yes, I'm talking to you too, Rasha. But I do think it's funny. Sometimes when you're just surrounded by all this bullshit, like these little
games that y'all try to play, and you come here and you have these meetings and you pretend that you care. You just gotta laugh sometimes. Like when Jim gives his little reports and he looks like so proud of himself, and you guys are like, good job, Jim. Great job. You guys really think that you're doing something. Like, that's really funny to me. People have already said everything that I want to say. My community, I live in a community that's so over-policed. It's a really black area by Leimert Park. Police are always there harassing people. I was just talking to a woman the other day, walked into a store. She was trying to get a snack for her and her daughter. She just was irritated. And I'm like, why? She said the cops are pulling people over asking me if I live here. No reason. I just saw the cops the other day pull over a young black boy in Leimert for jaywalking. Like, this is the bullshit we deal with. And then we have to come here and beg for you to care that our lives were stolen. We have to come here and beg for transparency. Where is the Keith Porter reports? Why is it not available to the public? You have not given us a reason. You haven't. Why haven't you made any action, made any moves over this City Hall doctrine saying no more random traffic stops? This was just what this woman was complaining to me about yesterday. Like, you're so slow to move on things that actually matter, that actually make people feel safe. And then you come here, you act like it's so tedious to listen to people, so tedious that families come here and bring their children. This is an inaccessible place at an inaccessible time. Like, y'all just hate human lives, huh? What kind of person do you have to be to act like this? I just don't understand. So I'm done. Like, I don't accept this as my society. I don't accept y'all as a legitimate body. Do something, and justice for Keith Porter Jr.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Sheila Bates.
First, the way we are forced to enter these meetings has been absurd. But forcing people to wait outside in the heat because of your arbitrary rules to only have 3 people in the lobby at a time is a health and safety hazard. At least we made it into the meeting and got started today. It's interesting how technical difficulties continue to happen for these meetings when LAPD gets almost 50% of the general fund. So clearly the issue isn't money, but ineptitude. So according to the Chief Pig's own report, crime continues to go down as it has for the last several years. Yes, I'm talking about you, you jackass. This as there is a quote-unquote staffing shortage with one of the highest police budgets. It's almost as if police don't have anything to do with crime rates. And yet shootings by LAPD, by a report previously shared in this commission, has increased by over 70% under this jackass. The question posed by you, Rasha, about recruiting is wild, considering the fact that this department was once advertising in Breitbart. Maybe it also has to do with the sexual harassment and sexual assault within the cadet program by sworn officers. Perhaps the problem is policing itself that is creating the problem. When police hail from slave catchers, we can see why they are inherently violent and anti-black. The pathetic propaganda thinly veiled by the National Night Out is not fooling anyone. The mention about community concerns when you are trying to renegotiate the contract with Flock instead of outright canceling it falls beyond short. At least 30 municipalities have canceled their contracts with Flock in 2025 alone. We will ensure that LA shuts it down permanently in 2026. What about the concerns on the time and location of this meeting? Or the calls to fire McDonald? Or the calls for justice in the name of Keith Porter and those killed by the LAPD? What about the concern for LAPD's collaboration with ICE? Or for a state law that this jackass refuses to enforce that prohibits ICE from covering their faces? Where are the concerns for any of these things? For anything that is mentioned in this room time and time again? From the pleas from the families who were killed by people who were surrounded by? Every single week, we walk into these meetings. Families whose loved ones were killed by LAPD are surrounded by possibly the same jackasses that killed their loved one. Or someone who stayed silent and knew that was happening. Or stood by and watched it happen and did nothing to stop it.
Every single one of you are fucking pathetic. You have blood on your hands, and may you never rest well and for the rest of your life. May the blood of those who have been killed.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next speaker, please.
Do you not want to hear me anymore?
Ma'am, you've had an opportunity to speak. This is your first warning. You are now disrupting the meeting.
1,200 people a year are killed by the police.
Ma'am, you...
The next speaker is Jason Reedy.
So surprisingly,
Ma'am, you have already been given a warning and you are continuing to disrupt the meeting, so I've asked that you leave the meeting.
So surprisingly, what didn't make Jim's report this morning was LAPD killed another man in custody. This time, Jose Carlos Hoyos Munoz was murdered by your pigs in Valley Jail section. Your press release states that he was placed onto a jail cell bunk in prone position after a use of force, and approximately 20 minutes later, your pigs entered his cell to discover him unconscious and not breathing. You murdered Jose, left his body in a cell, on a cell bunk, so it would appear that there was no foul play, and are selling it to the media like it was a medical emergency or something. It sounds very similar to what you did to Lamar Helper at the end of last year. Now, LASD isn't the only department murdering people in jails. Best believe if LAPD had the extensive jail network that LASD does, you'd be surpassing their numbers. For decades, we've heard about how your pigs abused, people processed, or held at that specific jail. And McDonald, Mr. California Post exclusive, commended this jail in his July Chiefs message. What else happened recently in your jails? Well, let's talk about what the department called an arrestee medical incident, where a pregnant woman had a miscarriage after your pigs failed to provide her with adequate medical care. Yes, your pigs decided to take her to the infamous MDC to be evaluated by fascist medical staff, who then cleared her for booking for what y'all determined was grand theft. Shortly after, her water broke, and instead of immediately rushing her out of the facility, y'all waited until she was screaming in agony to request an ambulance. Then after losing her baby, y'all still found the time to cite and release her. These are the types of cover-ups that Jim gleaned when he was handling internal investigations for Daryl Gates. A monster, I'll remind those who are listening, that Jim labeled a, quote, very misunderstood person. Before becoming sheriff, McDonald talked about the problems in the jail system being a result of the culture that went to the top of the organization, which condoned or encouraged the abusive behavior of their deputies. That same culture thrived while he was sheriff during his most intimate years of collaborating with ICE, and it's the same culture that extends to LAPD jails. Another week and still no release of your beloved dog killer's name, Jim. When Jim was head of the Long Beach Police Department, he once said, "Too often law enforcement treats the vast majority of what it does as secret and dissuades public involvement, when in fact, very little needs to be kept confidential and the engagement of our community should be embraced and welcomed." This was in response to a LA Times lawsuit against the city of Long Beach to obtain the names of Long Beach pigs who murdered Douglas Zerbe. Do you remember him, Jim? Who they claimed was holding a gun, but in fact was holding a garden hose nozzle. McDonald blamed the union for keeping the name secret, claiming he welcomed the court's decision to force the city to release the names of those pigs and any pigs who had fired their weapon in the previous 5 years. Where's that energy now, Jim? Your expertise in doublespeak was something you picked up at Don Bosco, right? Speaking of court cases, the city had to settle a claim with an LAPD captain because a pig called out Blake Chow, who is now the assistant chief and runs your 2028 Olympics planning group, and Michael Orb, who got to retire as a deputy chief. Chow and Orb ran the Transit Services Bureau together, took multiple LAPD pigs who were being paid by MTA to perform work for another agency. And during that time, y'all hit that motherfucker and complaints, and eventually he sued. Now he's getting paid out.
Thank you. Thank you. Your time is up. Next speaker.
The next speaker, Patricia Barrett.
Thank you, Chief McDonald, and to all the policemen. I want to address the alarming limitations being placed on the police officers, particularly regarding their ability to stop individuals for expired plates, tinted windows, and situations lacking probate costs. These restrictions hinder law enforcement's ability to protect the citizens of Los Angeles effectively. 10 years ago, we had 12,000 police officers. Now we are down to 8,700, 8,200, covering 474 miles, while our population continues to grow. This disparity is unacceptable and jeopardizes public safety in comparison. Chicago covers 264 miles with 13,000 officers, and New York covers 474,000 with 33 officers. The limitation imposed on our Los Angeles police force are not just numbers, they represent a significant risk to the public safety. The DSA members cannot rule over the police. They lack necessary experience, make these critical decisions. Their actions taken by City Council and DSA are undermining the effectiveness of the Los Angeles Police Department. I want to put this on record today. They need to collaborate with their unions to advocate for more officers and better equipment to protect themselves and the community. Furthermore, the union should explore legal avenues to ensure that our officers are adequately supported. They get $80 million from the LA Police every year. We must prioritize safety and ensure our police officers have the necessary tools to do their jobs. The responsibility for public safety lies with the City Council, and it should have been planned long ago. If Los Angeles residents and police officers do not have the proper safety tools in sufficient numbers to protect our population, we are setting ourselves up for failure. Additionally, I want to address the concern raised this week and last week, meeting on June 21st, 2026. Constituents expressed their opposition to the use of surveillance cameras to the city of Los Angeles. However, I urge these individuals to consider that there is more surveillance on their personal phones than any city cameras. They use that for safety. If they are concerned about surveillance, they should turn off their cell phones and focus on protections of citizens of Los Angeles and live off the grid. We need to ensure that our law enforcement has the support and resources necessary to keep our community safe. Thank you very much. Could I hand this to you?
Both of
Thank you very much.
Megan, you've already been warned.
The next speaker, Eli.
I speak on behalf of the many when I say that Angelenos want absolutely fucking nothing to do with the Flock company. It is my indication that quite a few of the commissioners are also seriously reconsidering the relations with the company as well. The people do not want the LAPD to continue negotiations over a new contract. Flock has not proved themselves worthy of continuing their operations in our city just with new reforms put into place. With the severing of ties with Flock, the Angelenos want assurance of the city's physical removal of these camera systems in a timely manner and no further liaising with that crooked-ass company. So, as a part of the efforts to continue the use of the ALPR systems, the city boasted that these cameras have led to numerous arrests and recoveries of stolen vehicles. But my question is, was this a result of the license plate reading alone? Some of you may know that Flock offers complimentary AI audio-enabled software in their cameras. So why has this not been brought up by the Inspector General or IT or the board? What I want to know is exactly how many Flock cameras employed Raven software as a part of their contract with the LAPD. Why has this not been raised as a point of contention at any point? The introduction of these microphones were originally advertised as gunshot detection software, but has since expanded to using machine learning to identify and log sounds of human distress, such as screeching tires, breaking glass, and screaming. That was a direct quote, screaming. So following this pattern and the growing suppression of free speech in this country, how long will it be till the Raven system is expanded to capture audio to incriminate civilians who express dissent against the government? Where do we draw the line here? The Flock Company is guilty of countlessly violating California laws, prohibiting public agencies from sharing ALPR data with out-of-state or federal agencies. As the Board of Police Commissioners, I would hope that you don't dismiss these violations lightly. This is not a matter of simple reform to prevent misuse. The Flock system itself was built to allow these misuses to occur. I hope that this will not be a case where privacy issues only become relevant when city employees themselves become the targets of surveillance at the hands of the ALPR companies. The city of Los Angeles needs to take note from the 80-plus jurisdictions in 28 states that have already terminated their Flock contracts. It is time to join Mountain View, Santa Cruz, Campbell, Los Altos Hills, Santa Clara County, El Cerrito, and South Pasadena in upholding our title as a sanctuary state. The city of Los Angeles will end negotiations and relations with Flock and expedite the physical removal of Flock cameras across the city following the expiration of the contract.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. We have no other public comment cards.
Okay, that completes the public comment portion of the meeting. The commission will take a short recess before we move on to the next items. Okay, the commission is back from recess and moving to item 3 on the agenda, consent agenda items. I'd like to hold item 3AA until we hear item 4A. Would any of the commissioners like to pull any other items from the consent agenda? Commissioner Tabor.
I have no pulls.
Okay. Commissioner Scobin.
No.
Okay. Then I move that we approve items 3A through 3Z and take the recommended board actions. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. So now let's move to items. We'll take 3AA and 4A together. And 4A is the verbal presentation on pursuit, intervention, technique, maneuver, training, and policy. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Good morning, Commissioners. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity here. I'd just like to acknowledge Commissioner Shields, Tabor, and Scobin, along with Inspector General Barragan and Chief McDonald, along with the Counsel Carlos de la Guerra. I'm Captain James Wang, Commanding Officer of Training Division. With myself today is Lieutenant Kim Dedman. She's the officer in charge of the Emergency Vehicle Operations Course, commonly known as EVOC. We're here to present today the Pursuit Intervention Technique, commonly referred to as PIT, its policy and operations. So PIT is defined as a forced rotational stop of a non-compliant suspect's vehicle. One thing to note that PIT may only be utilized by officers that have been certified and trained by the EVOC course and received that training and successfully completed that training. There are some guidelines, several guidelines that generally govern the pursuit intervention technique. All of these guidelines must be met for us to initiate a PIT maneuver. The apparent risk of harm to officers or the general public clearly outweighs the potential risk of implementing the PIT. When the primary unit's watch commander or the on-scene supervisor has given approval, unless exigent circumstances exist and the exigency can be articulated. Other reasonable means of apprehension, such as the tower inflation device, are not practical or have been proven to be ineffective. A third unit has joined the pursuit and is in position to support the primary and secondary units, and when the speed of both vehicles is 35 miles per hour or less. Some considerations for PIT include the location and looking at basically trying to reduce the liability and the risk of injury or property damage. The location, we consider traffic in the area in terms of vehicles, other modes of transportation, including pedestrians, road hazards, blind curves, bridges, whether the location is in a rural, urban area, commercial zoning area. Generally, though, PIT should not be attempted on some vehicles. These vehicles include any vehicles carrying hazardous materials, large and or heavy vehicles, vehicles with a high center of gravity, or a suspect that is known to be armed. For the Los Angeles Police Department, PIT training is given to all recruits in the academy, and they all receive PIT training to successfully complete the academy. 45 minutes of classroom lecture, 70 minutes behind the wheel with groups of approximately 2 to 3 students per vehicle, and each student attempts 10 pits. At the end of their training, they must be proficient in 4 of those of the last 6 attempts to become certified. We do also have training for additional staffing in service that is usually included for in-service personnel that are directed to training specifically for the pit because they're involved in an incident involving pit, or in-service personnel who are coming through the restoration process due to some sort of lengthy absence from the department. Looking at our current vehicle fleet for pit training operations, pit training began in April of 2005. We have been using the same fleet since that, back in 2005. Pit training vehicles currently we're all outfitted for the Crown Victoria. Currently, the fleet of patrol vehicles in the department are primarily Ford Explorers, and there are a limited number of Crown Victoria and Dodge Chargers still remaining in the fleet. The current plan, though, is to phase out this Crown Victoria and Dodge Charger models eventually. Along with the option of 3AA, that's subject for the consent agenda item. That specific grant is intended for us to work with Motor Transport Division to outfit one police Ford Explorer into a pit training vehicle. So we're prepared to answer any additional questions or any other questions you may have about the grant or pit training.
Wonderful, thank you. And since I had asked for this item to be pulled, I'll kind of start. But thank you for this presentation. It really does. It's helpful to understand kind of the need for the additional, equipment for training. And I wanted, given that we are, focused on making sure the department's, police pursuits are done, are striking the right balance between public safety and ensuring that, bystanders and others are not, injured. It's good to hear about more of these items before just approving new technology or new equipment. And so I think your presentation helped answer to me both some of the training that's there, so that we're ensuring that not any random person is just doing trying to pit stop without consulting others and things like that. So that has been helpful. And then also the parameters and guardrails around when they are conducted, because I have been to other conferences where I've seen video footage of other departments across the country where they are using pit maneuvers on very, very fast vehicles on freeways, and it resulting kind of in terrible consequences. And so I'm glad to hear that there are limitations in terms of the speed at which a safe pit maneuver can be conducted, and that's not to exceed 35 miles. And from what I understand, that a lot of these are very kind of slow moving pit maneuvers, if I understand that correctly. And so with that, those are the questions that I had. And again, I understand kind of the need to try to use whatever we can to end a police pursuit as quickly as possible, but doing so in a safe manner. And I'm glad that you're considering all of the factors in terms of what the surroundings. So I'll ask my fellow commissioners if they have any questions about this. I'll go Commissioner Tabor.
And thank you for your verbal report. The only question I have is how many officers over what period of time will begin training with the new equipment? And I guess the second part of that is what in a short statement, what's the advantage of this new equipment and process over what we've been doing?
So our training division, we have a very close relationship with the Transport, especially for emergency vehicle operations course. That is a very robust usage of our department vehicles, and Motor Transport has been an outstanding partner with us to take care of that. So the intent of this is as the technology and vehicles have changed over the years, and specifically what has come up is the unibody construction of the SUV. So it has created some additional technology and engineering issues about installing the pit equipment that would prevent the cars from getting additional damage. So this grant would then give us a set of equipment for us to then work with Motor Transport support to install. The intent is, if that is successful, we've already had meetings about this, and we're very confident that this will be successful. For us to do then a full installation and a full fleet change out, then the Crown Victorias will be meeting the time that when the Crown Victorias will have left the fleet of operations, and then for us, the EVOC horse will then have switched all of our vehicles over to the SUV to be consistent with that. We're trying to meet the MTD goals of strategy for fleet deployment.
Commissioner Scobin.
Thank you for the information. So recognizing the grant supports the equipment for one training explorer, what is the ideal number of vehicles ultimately to be equipped with this technology to support, the proper training that the department looks to achieve with this?
Good morning, everyone. So the ideal number is to have 8 vehicles. Currently, we actually have 8 pit vehicles assigned to the fleet. Unfortunately, 2 of those are currently out of service, so we're using the 6. But the 8 vehicles allows us to pull vehicles out of service in order for maintenance and then continue with the training. So that there's no absence of training for any of our either recruit classes or in-service training that occurs.
So then those 8 you currently have are Crown Victorias.
Correct. Every single one in the fleet is currently a Crown Victoria.
So then the ideal scenario is to have 8 explorers equipped with the technology for full training for this, correct?
Sir.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I asked because it's important for us to understand what's actually needed so we can, see where we can support. Based on the info you gave, namely the restrictions of when PIT could be used, it's clear it's dangerous, it's risky. So I appreciate that insight. I'm curious, what, if any, technology or tools exist that could be an alternate method for accomplishing the same thing? And is that something that we're also looking at as a parallel path? I know there was a grant once for kind of excuse my layman's terms, with the net that comes out, the grappler that comes out. But I'm curious, is that a viable alternative? And are there others that the department's looking at as well?
So the department's in constant looking for new technologies that'll help enhance our operations and also increase public safety. We've looked at quite a few devices. Some of them, as we've project them out and looked into them, unusual things sometimes occur, such as we've looked at GPS tracking, but then there's an issue of warrant and public privacy. We've looked at additional other abilities to stop vehicles. Right now, currently, we do deploy the the tire deflation device. That is the alternate other version. That's been successful, but looking in terms of intervening with another vehicle, as what's referred to, I believe, is the grappler, which is currently being looked at by Metropolitan Division, and that's a very specific type of a deployment that'll happen with that. But the department is constantly looking at new technologies, and we just find, as we are always open to it, but currently we find the PIT is effective along with the stop sticks that we're using. But we have definitely explored into other capabilities of looking at all kinds of other things, such as tire disabling, engine disabling, tracking systems and such. But each of them come with a little bit different nuance of technology and sometimes legal considerations for us.
And if I can just add on to what the captain said about the grappler, the other issue is that the grappler cannot be used on a unibody police vehicle. And currently our fleet is made of unibody vehicles, and that's why it's not supported by our fleet.
Thank you for the information.
Great. Thank you so much for the verbal presentation, and I appreciate the additional information. And based on the additional information, I would move that we approve the department's report for item, the verbal presentation we don't have to approve. That was done. Thank you so much. But I would move that we approve item 3AA and take the recommended board action. Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Thank you both so much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
And we'll now move on to the remaining regular agenda items. Item 4B, the department's report relative to the immigration update for June 2026.
Good morning, Madam President, Commissioners, Chief of Police. Inspector General Barragan, City Attorney De La Guerra, and members of the public. My name is Selena Robles, Commanding Officer of Central Traffic Division, appearing today on behalf of Deputy Chief Germán Hurtado, the Department Immigration Affairs Liaison. Pursuant to Mayor Karen Bass's Executive Directive number 17, the department provides the board with a monthly transparency report regarding reportable federal immigration enforcement activity that comes to the department's attention. This report contains, to the extent allowed by law, aggregated data regarding incidents of possible federal immigration enforcement actions. For June 2026, the department reviewed 45 potential incidents identified through department reporting systems utilizing specific key search terms to ensure comprehensive coverage and avoid any omissions. Following diligent review of the 45 incidents identified, 33 incidents were unrelated to federal enforcement action and determined not to meet Executive Directive number 17 reporting criteria. 12 incidents qualified for department reporting. Of those 12 incidents, only 2 resulted in an LAPD field response. Importantly, department personnel did not encounter an active federal immigration enforcement operation during any of those responses. Regarding how those qualifying incidents came to our attention, 8 originated from the Department of Homeland Security, 3 were initiated by community members, and 1 call originated from the Los Angeles Fire Department. I want to emphasize one important point. These figures do not represent every federal immigration enforcement activity occurring within the city of Los Angeles. Rather, they represent only those incidents that generated a call for service or otherwise came to the department's attention and met the reporting requirements of Executive Directive number 17. Beyond reporting, the department continues implementing Executive Directive number 17 by updating department guidance and public-facing resources. Proposed revisions to the department's immigration frequently asked questions reinforce officer responsibilities, including activation of body-worn video, supervisory documentation when technically feasible, de-escalation, clear communication with community members, preservation of evidence, medical assistance when needed, mandated public reporting when local state violations are reported, and continued public transparency. These revisions have been drafted to accurately reflect Executive Directive number 17 and are currently progressing through the department approval process. The department remains committed to protecting public safety while maintaining transparency, accountability, and community trust. Thank you. That concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions within the scope of today's report.
Wonderful, thank you. And I think you started getting into kind of the FAQs, and that also goes to one of the other reports that with the updating of the notice for Executive Directive 17. So I will go ahead and also, while you're here, we'll call on for regular agenda item 4D, the department's report relating to the department's protocols to enhance compliance with the mayor's executive director number 17. And that's the additional changes that have been made to the notice, the chief's notice. And then I'll also call item 4C, the verbal presentation of the Office of Inspector General's ongoing audit of the department's response to incidents involving federal immigration enforcement action. Since all of these issues are all kind of tied together, I'd like to hear the Inspector General's report as well, and then we can, as a group, ask both the IG's office and Captain Robles your reports as well. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Assistant Inspector General Lisa Ridout. I oversee the Office of the Inspector General's Audit Section. I'll be providing an update on our ongoing audit of the Department's response to incidents involving federal immigration enforcement action. So the Department has continued to provide weekly reports to our Office of incidents possibly involving federal immigration enforcement action. Communications Division conducts a search of call logs for the newly implemented Federal Immigration Enforcement Action Disposition Code, in addition to keywords including immigration, federal enforcement, kidnap, mask, DHS, ICE, HSI, Homeland Security, and agent. Concurrent to the department's weekly search, the OIG conducts a similar search of keywords and terms to ensure that all immigration-related enforcement incidents are reported to the BOPC. In accordance with the Commission's direction, this report also includes notifications from federal agencies regarding their presence within the City of Los Angeles and any potential immigration-related enforcement activity. So the department identified 31 incidents and the OIG identified an additional 14 for a total of 45 incidents in June that possibly related to federal immigration enforcement. After reviewing department incident records and available video recordings, the OIG determined that 33 of the 45 incidents were not related to federal immigration enforcement. Those incidents consisted of the following: 26 incidents, federal agents notified the Department of Surveillance activity. 2 incidents were protest activity related to immigration. 2 incidents were medical-related calls. 1 incident, DHS notified the department that it would be serving a search warrant in the area. For 1 incident was a documentation of a task force meeting, and the remaining incident, a community member reported being pushed from behind inside a federal building. Officers reviewed CCTV footage and determined that no crime had occurred. The remaining 12 of 45 incidents were related to immigration enforcement. 8 of those 12 involved notifications from DHS or ICE advising the department of general or targeted enforcement activity in the area. The remaining incidents were directly related to active immigration enforcement action. In 1 incident, a community member contacted the police to report that their partner was possibly taken by ICE and asked if ICE was in the area. The police service representative contacted the watch commander, who confirmed that ICE notified the department that they were conducting enforcement activity in the division. The police service representative connected the community member's call directly with DHS. In 1 incident, a community member reported their friend was detained by ICE agents wearing vests with ICE clearly visible. The community member reported they spoke with the at-scene ICE supervisor, who provided them with the facility location that the person would be taken to, but did not provide a business card. The department provided the community member with a phone number to contact ICE directly. The following 2 remaining incidents are related. Multiple community members reported that ICE was in the area and that ICE agents detained 2 individuals. Another caller reported the incident involved a kidnapping. As a result, officers and a supervisor responded to the location. Upon arrival, ICE agents were no longer at scene. Officers interviewed community members and reviewed cell phone video recordings to confirm the incident related to federal immigration enforcement action. One witness reported ICE agents used a taser on one of the detained individuals. So the related incident is that the LA Fire Department contacted the police while in front of a police station to report their patient had been tased by Homeland Security. When officers arrived, the fire department had already left the location. However, officers spoke with an ICE agent at scene, who confirmed that ICE agents had used a taser on an in-custody individual. So overall, the OIG found that LAPD officers did not interact with federal immigration agents during immigration enforcement actions. Supervisors responded when required, and officers completed reports when appropriate. Although responding officers activated their body-worn video and digital in-car video systems in accordance with department policy, the OIG found that some recordings were not properly titled or tagged as required. Additionally, recordings and photos provided by community members of federal agents involved in immigration enforcement action were not uploaded into evidence.com as required. In closing, I just wanted to remind members of the public that they may report relevant incidents directly to our office by phone or email by providing the date, time, and location of the event. Our contact number is 213-893-6400, and our email address is communityrelationsoig@lacity.org. That concludes my presentation. I'm also available to answer any questions the Commission may have.
Great, thank you. Why don't we start with some questions? Commissioner Tabor?
Yes, I think I have no questions on the report. I did appreciate the thoroughness in taking us back in time and bringing it forward. So thank you.
And Commissioner Scobin?
Yes, thank you collectively for the information. I have some questions. Really to the department. The department report states that it does not know the overall number of federal immigration enforcement actions that occurred in the city, and I understand why it may not be possible to know all of the actions. My question relates to how we both have historically and currently track and report those actions that the department does become aware. We discussed at a prior presentation that the commission desires that the report include all known ICE enforcement actions in the city and not only those as cited in the note where the department has documented or received reports of suspected unlawful conduct by immigration enforcement agents or which a response is generated. Pursuant to a chief's note dated March 3rd, 2026, when ICE contacts an area watch commander to make the department aware of an impending enforcement action, the watch commander is required to document the activity in the watch commander's daily report and notify the commanding officer when the commanding officer receives notice of a response by an area to the action. The commanding officer is then required to notify the bureau commanding officer and the Department of Immigration Affairs liaison, who of course is Hurtado is not here. Since the prior discussion we had the prior month, I'm aware that Valley Bureau sent a notice to all units in its jurisdiction to create an incident for each of these calls, which generates a unique incident number. I think it's significant because an incident number allows the department to electronically track and report notifications of known ICE activity. And it seems that without creating an incident, that info may not be retrieved. First question is was the requirement to create an incident that was recently sent to all Valley Bureau areas also sent to all other areas in the city?
A great question, Commissioner. Our department is certainly committed to being transparent with all contexts with eyes in any immigration enforcement action. To answer your question, we are very particular when it comes to any watch commander calls that are watch commander typically generate radio calls so that can be tracked and followed up with as far as the disposition is concerned. The communications division has protocols that they'll dispute the call whether or not it was immigration enforcement related, yes or no, or whether or not the supervisor attended or not. I will have to double check whether or not it's been given a direct order as far as it pertains to all divisions, but that's a Valley Bureau tactic is something that will help support. But keep in mind, any immigration action that is taken does come to the attention of the immigration liaison officer, which is Chief Hurtado. He then tracks all information related to that. Any immigration affairs incident also goes to the department's operations center, which he is alerted via telephone or email to correspond and to update. So, and he also regularly meets with the Inspector General's office to ensure that there is continuity of information being shared as far as no information is being omitted. So there is a commitment to ensuring that we capture all information as best as possible.
Thank you. Regarding the 35 incidents that were identified by search terms such as ICE, immigration, et cetera, but were determined to be unrelated to federal enforcement actions, in what types of circumstances do these terms appear?
Do you want to answer that question? I will defer to the Inspector General, but as far as any call for service, the department will respond to any call for service to ensure there's public safety as it pertains to immigration enforcement action. These directives from Executive Order 17 are being shared with officers in roll call by our commanding officers, by our watch commanders, and we are, as I outlined, very dedicated to ensure that public safety is a paramount priority. That is our fundamental duty to protect and serve all members of the community, regardless of immigration status. But as it pertains to the calls that are outlined as far as what we responded, I'll defer to the Inspector General since they're able to report on further details.
I can provide more information about the 33 incidents that were not considered immigration enforcement related. As I mentioned, that 26 were incidents created when a federal agent contacted the department to report that they were going to be conducting surveillance in the area. So it wasn't necessarily, they didn't report that it was immigration related. It was just surveillance in the area. 2 incidents were also, caught up in those on the search terms were related to protest-related incidents, and I can give you more information on those 2 if you'd like. One involved a small group of people protesting against ICE in a business parking lot, causing a disturbance. It was a small group of 5, I believe. Officers did respond to the location and determined that it was just a peaceful protest, so no further action was taken. The other protest-related call for service A community member reported that protesters were outside a burger restaurant telling customers that purchasing food there would be in support of ICE, and the department on that occasion did not respond. They didn't report any sort of disturbance, so officers were not dispatched to that location. 2 incidents were medical related. One involved a death at LAX that was connected somehow with federal agents, but I'm not sure in the exact details, but it wasn't immigration enforcement related. And the other was where officers were kind of taking over a responsibility at a hospital that somehow was connected to federal agents, but not immigration related as well. One incident was created because DHS notified the department that they would be serving a search warrant in the area, not related to immigration. One incident was just a documentation of a task force meeting. And then the final incident involved a community member who reported being pushed in a federal building. Officers did respond to that location. Initially, they reported that the community member reported that federal agents were involved in the pushing, but once officers reviewed the CCTV footage, it was determined that no criminal act or federal agents were not involved in that incident whatsoever. So they were the 33 incidents that were created, but later determined not unrelated to immigration enforcement.
Great. And last question for now is going back. Do you know if the requirement to create an incident and an incident number by the watch commander will be expanded beyond the valley throughout the rest of the city?
I anticipate that will be a dedicated item for the department to pursue, so that we can accurately track all contacts with ICE.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, Commissioner, all commands are creating incident numbers when notified by ICE, and that was already directed by OO. So that is a place we should be capturing everything.
Okay, great.
Great, thank you for that clarification. And with regards to the Inspector General's report, I know we have talked at some point of that you would be kind of collating all the different prior months of reports that you've been doing into some type of written report that would be helpful and available to the public. At what point do you anticipate that would be available?
We have started preparing that report, and we anticipate that report to be presented to Commission likely in October or November of this year.
Thank you so much. And for the department, the Inspector General's office has identified, again, that some officers have been, properly turning on their body-worn video, but there are issues with the tagging and then the uploading of certain, communications into evidence. And I think that's an important role for the Inspector General to be able to go back through and itemize when there are community individuals talking about, whether their federal agents were doing something that may not have been a crime, but it's a complaint. I think we've spoken before that, the city wants all that documented. And so the only way they're going to be able to be documented is if the IG is able to review the body-worn video and capture those types of things in a report. So how do we ensure that the department and the officers are continuing to, make sure that they're uploading the body-worn and all evidence as necessary?
Thank you, Madam President. Right now, the Immigration Affairs Liaison Officer, Chief Hurtado, is working closely with OCPP, Captain Leong, to be in response to EO17, those 8 directives. One of them includes ensuring that body-worn video is activated through all contexts relative to ICE, immigration, and other investigative means, but also it includes a directive to include that every evidence that is identified, that the officer labels each indicator of that's important so that IG can review it, or for any further evidentiary value, so it can serve its purpose for any city attorney, the attorney, or general reporting for referrals by our investigative staff. So all those directives that have been included and directed by the Mayor's Office, Executive Order 17, are being added not only to the frequently asked questions pamphlet, but also we're working closely with OCPP, with Captain Leong, to ensure that all of those directives are followed in accordance to the Mayor's directive.
Great, thank you. And I appreciate the Inspector General's kind of monitoring of this issue and continuing to kind of encourage that compliance so that we're capturing any kind of potential gaps in real time. So thank you for both the IG and the department's kind of collaboration on this.
Yes.
And going to, you had mentioned kind of the updates to the frequently asked questions document, because that came up when the executive director reviewed the chief's notice for alignment with ED 17. And that this relates to the department's report number for item 4D, the edits to the chief's notice to kind of align with the executive director's review. When do you anticipate the FAQs being updated?
So Chief Hurtado submitted a batch note directed to OCPP that we are in full alignment with Executive Order 17, delineating all the key points as directed by the Mayor, Karen Bass. OCPP, Karen Leon office is working on those particulars, so it will be updated at some point electronically, and also obviously going through the chain of command through the Chief of Police, where he'll review and finalize all specifics to ensure that we're in line with City Attorney and the constitutional law. So we're working, like I mentioned earlier, closely with the Captain Leong on those efforts. Back in July 1st, 2025 is when Chief McDonald really put out that information to ensure to educate our public members online on our public-facing internet, where you can go lapdonline.org, and those questions, frequently asked questions, are there. So we're going to modify to realign ourselves with EO 17, and all those particulars will be updated. So to give you a timeline, I'll defer to Captain Leong as far as when that will be particularly fully finalized.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We just received that information. We are working diligently to incorporate that data, as well as getting Spanish translation for this information. And once we get that, the current policy is already on the public-facing website. We will ensure that that is included. That will be sent out to, all the divisions for their community meetings. We'll work again with the dial to establish another QR code for these updates, so it will be readily available for the public.
Thank you. And with regards to the item 4D, the department's report, this appears to have incorporated the feedback from the executive director and his report. I'll ask my fellow commissioners if you have any questions about that. Commissioner Scobin?
No, not at this time.
Commissioner Tabor?
Just to follow on, have we had any incidents where officers at the point of an immigration action began their responsibility of identifying the lead officer from the federal side, from ICE, and we did not get a response, an appropriate response or information directly? Or has there been complete compliance when we've attempted to ascertain who was lead and officers involved?
Commissioner, I have not heard of any concerns or challenges based on the directive. Officers, supervisors have been told to, when feasible and when the scene has stabilized, to follow up with the lead supervisor of Homeland Security to ensure that there's verification. But I will say this, officers have also been directed that if there is any concern of violation of state or local violations, that officers are required and shall take a police report to ensure that we follow thoroughly, diligently to any of the community concerns that they may suspect that they were victimized of any entity. So we will follow thoroughly, and supervisors have been directed to do that as well.
Will that information also be tracked with respect to incidents listed in the report?
Yes, all calls for service are tracked through our communications division, and at that point are available for us to exclude, to ensure that we review all incidents. And like I mentioned, Chief Hurtado meets regularly with the Inspector General's office to ensure that no incidents or calls of service are being missed.
Thank you. No further.
Well, wonderful. Thank you all for the collaboration and the reports. I would move that we approve the department's reports in items 4B and 4 D and take the recommended board actions. Is there a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. We'll now move to item 4E, the Inspector General's report relating to a review of the department's policies that impact sworn women personnel.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Again, Lisa Ridout, Assistant Inspector General at the Office of the Inspector General's Office. Beside me is Police Performance Auditor Christine Shin, also from the Office of the Inspector General's Office. We're here to present the OIG's review of the LAPD's policies and practices affecting sworn women personnel. So our office conducted a review which evaluated the LAPD's workplace policies against national best practices by comparing them with those of the Chicago Police Department, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and the New York Police Department. The review also incorporated insights from a survey of sworn LAPD officers and a thorough review of internal misconduct complaint investigations. I'll now turn the presentation over to Police Performance Auditor Christine Shin, who will share our findings and recommendations.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Inspector General, Chief of Police, and City Attorney. This review focused on workplace policies involving discrimination, harassment, retaliation, pregnancy accommodations, parental leave, and lactation accommodations. Overall, we found that LAPD provides 12 weeks of paid paternal leave, maintains comprehensive anti-discrimination policies, and allows pregnant officers to wear maternity uniforms. The survey, however, identified several opportunities for improvement. Of the 494 sworn personnel who responded, 64% reported overall job satisfaction. At the same time, many expressed concerns about workplace fairness. More than half believe promotions are not based on merit. Only 30% reported having a mentor, and many indicated that mentorship opportunities are insufficient. The OIG also reviewed 29 internal complaint investigations from 2024 involving allegations of discrimination, harassment, and retaliation. The review found that 27 of the investigations were thorough and reached appropriate conclusions. The remaining 2 contained minor investigative deficiencies, but those issues were not significant enough to affect the outcomes. In conclusion, the review found that although the LAPD has implemented several strong workplace policies, improvements in training, mentorship, transparency, and employee support could strengthen workplace culture and further align its practice with national standards. Based on these findings, the OIG made 6 recommendations. First, centralize all workplace-related policies and directives into a single, easily searchable location on the department's intranet. Second, increase training frequency by transitioning from biannual to mandatory annual workplace equity training for all employees. Third, develop and maintain bystander harassment intervention training across all ranks. Fourth, modernize pregnancy disclosure policies by allowing voluntary policy disclosure unless duty performance is impacted, and remove mandatory physician note requirements absent a requested accommodation. Fifth, pilot a workplace mediation or a conflict resolution program to resolve underlying workplace disputes, providing quarterly trend updates to the OIG. And lastly, establish a structured mentorship program focusing on junior officers' professional development, leadership, and career navigation. That concludes our presentation. We thank the department for its cooperation and assistance throughout this review. The department was in general agreement with our findings and our recommendations. We are available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Tabar if you have any questions.
So I had inserted all of my questions in the document, and I see that they're not there, so I'm gathering. So if we can come back to me.
Of course. Commissioner Scobin.
Well, thank you for the report, and thank you for the recommendations. Chief, I'm happy to see the department agrees with them. I guess, my question is, how do we have ongoing communication and visibility to understand progress and track progress and success and nod and pivots, et cetera? They're obviously very important recommendations and culture builders that I think implemented properly will help make the department even better. So I'm just kind of curious, what's the next step, and how are we going to continue to bring visibility over this?
We have been in communication with the department on one of the particular one about centralizing the directives and information. They've already started the process. So we have been in ongoing communication with the department to ensure that they're going to follow through. And for one of them, providing the updates, that would be a quarterly update to us. So that's something that we are holding them accountable so that we can be informed on a regular basis.
And is the idea that quarterly update would then come to the commission in this format, or?
If I could step in, part of our audit plan and our draft proposal for the year is to come to you and let you know what we have anticipated. As part of that, we'll also be presenting where the recommendations that you've adopted stand, and so that you can get fuller information about some of the background of what you've approved and where we are in tracking that implementation. So there'll be annual opportunities for that moving forward. And as with respect to this specific report, if you'd like a report back, we're happy to do that.
Thanks. And I don't know if the department has any comment on that, and just the ongoing, communication and tracking and.
No, it's just a thank you for the audit, and it's good to see we're on the right track. I appreciate the recommendations and our experts' concurrence with that. So we'll continue to work together with you as we move forward to make the environment as good as it possibly can be for all of our employees.
Any other questions, Commissioner Scobin? And thank you all for the very detailed report and the verbal presentation. I think when I was on the commission a little while ago, this is something I had asked about, and really it's all about. I've never been someone for quotas. It's not about getting certain number of people in the door. I just want to make sure that there's no kinds of unnecessary barriers, either holding back anyone from entry or advancement. And so really wanted to make sure that the policies that the department had in place, as well as the culture, is really reflective of something that's a fostering environment where, all people, including women, feel comfortable and want to be here. And so I really just appreciate your analysis, and I really appreciate the kind of comparison with other departments. And it really is good to know that the department has, in many, many respects, the most robust policies in place. And I think the city passing and working with the department to have paternity leave and maternity leave has also been a very big driver for that. And I do appreciate there are recommendations about areas where policies can be strengthened, including, when an officer is supposed to and has to disclose their pregnancy. Again, it's really good to know what other departments are doing and how we can make the department, conducive to, people choosing when to alert that kind of sensitive information to their employer. And it would be helpful for me because there are certain, and I wholly agree with the recommendations that have been made by the Inspector General's office. One thing I would like the department to kind of report back on is some of the feasibility of it, particularly, or how do you anticipate it like looking, like for example, like the mentorship program, like what does that look like and who would, because sometimes it may sound good in theory, but then in practice it doesn't work, or there can be some targeted areas where, here's really a place where we can find good gaps of mentoring and where we can help. And that can potentially be, I think the sheriff's department has like a mentoring for like sergeants and detectives, right? So finding where is the best use of our limited resources, it would be great for the department to think through these issues and come back to us on that. The other one in particular too, about just the feasibility of it, is how the department handles the workplace investigations and workplace things. If there was any other way we can do it, it's a very challenging process, and the more we can potentially have conflict resolution, mediation, be the answer much earlier on than year-long complaints that then get weaponized and no one's talking to each other and situations fester. The more we can do that, I think it benefits everyone. And I know that the department previously had, sent supervisors to, the Pepperdine School, Law School for mediation studies. I'd love to know what's the feasibility of bringing something like that back, whether it's piloted or else. But I think addressing that issue is key to a healthy workforce. And with a healthy workforce, they can then be healthy in the community. And so I think it is an important area that really needs a lot of attention. And so I would love to hear, what the feasibility of doing that and timeline for doing that. So Commissioner Tabor, do you have any follow-up questions?
So I, as I recall, I had maybe 24 questions, but I think I can just, for this purpose in this conversation, sort of work through the group topic areas, if it'd be all right. One of my questions was initially, and I appreciated the detail and the broad explanations, and including the recommendations of and comments both of the chief and the department, but as well as the Inspector General. So, in breaking down those 494 participants in the study, I'd like to see it also broken down by age, by number of years on the job, and by age, number of years on the job, because I think that helps us begin to understand the culture within the department, but also the perspective of officers as it relates to not just being surveyed, but the input that they provided in range. With respect to the conversations in the study about the question of equity and merit and promotional opportunity and opportunity qualifications, how do we as a department define merit just in the practical sense, I think is important, so that we're able to understand the perspectives of the officers who are reporting, that they don't think the decisions for promotion are based on merit. What is the definition? How are they defining it? And then with respect to the broad conversations about equity within the department, historically those conversations, or most recently, given the attack on diversity, equity, inclusion, there is very little description of what equity is and what it means within the framework of both law enforcement and particularly in LAPD. So I think we need to be very clear on when we use the term equity, what we mean and what our understanding is of what the officers mean, both those in command staff as well as line officers. There is a clear relationship between merit and equity, or at least there should be. And I think for officers to believe that an effort to increase or to provide equity within the opportunity within the department and see that as a means of preventing their merit being considered requires that we think seriously and articulate what the process is and how each is used within the decision to promote or to provide opportunity for training, so that we're clear that that we're not fostering a sense of discrimination and we're being set. I really am. This is a question I don't know if we can answer today, but I hope that we can. I'd be interested in your thoughts. Where a policy says that an officer must be on the job 12 months to be eligible for maternity, paternity. I hope I just misread that and didn't understand it, because it seems to me that if we're aggressively hiring and bringing officers on, that young officers who've started a family or are thinking about starting a family are penalized if they have to wait 12 months to engage in the same type of bonding process through birth that officers who've been on the job 2 or 3 years have. And I don't think that that's the message we want to deliver, nor support. I don't want to support it, frankly, just put it in that sense, that we want to be realistic about how we allow officers who've just come on to the job to still begin their family, to receive the same opportunity of bonding. And we've figured out a way to make that work given the demands of a new officer on the job and the opportunity for training and all those things. So we just want to see us consider that. Then I 100% support this notion of mentoring and expanding, but I want us to be clear on how we're defining those who are eligible to be mentors or who should be mentors, and not just move those who've got good training experience into a mentor relationship. I think they're two different things, and they require several different types of skills. So some are similar, but many are much different, and I think that'd be important to recognize as we do that, so we're not just using the term, but we're really building within the culture and understanding of how important these roles are. And then, hold on one second, and then for today, I asked my wife if it would be all right for me as a male commissioner to have a conversation about lactation. And her response was, you got 5 kids, 8 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. So yeah, you can have a conversation. I found it concerning that officers expressed that they found it difficult to provide time, to arrange time during their shift to that, and to the extent that I think we look beyond just what resources that the department may have, that we look at how we might collaborate with other public sites and agencies to create spaces for officers to express milk during their shift, creates an opportunity for us to expand the presence of law enforcement in areas that may not typically see us there because the public is not there, but certainly the resources are there in other public agencies held by the City of Los Angeles. So just to think in a broader context, and I say that as a husband and father who wore a device during times of birth and feeding of children. So clearly I sense it and remember it from that experience. So those were my sort of categorical errors of questions. And certainly we can, as we get into annual reports or the audit reports, I may have more specific to go through. So thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful.
In terms of the number of years of service, it's not highlighted in the report, but we do have that data. And when I looked at the data, it was roughly about 60% that had more than 16 years on the department. So we got more responses from people who've been on the job longer than those who are more newly recruited. In terms of the lactation, it is a very challenging aspect. Obviously, it was more pertaining to women officers that are on patrol. The ones that are in a desk job or administrative duties, they have the space to do it, but it's just challenging for those who are out on the field because of the fact that they might be on a call for 3-4 hours and they can't just leave the scene and do what they need to do and then come back. So those are some of the things that the department has to look into to see how they could figure that out operationally. That's something that we could not on our own try to determine how that works, because that's obviously an operational issue. But if you have any other statistic information that you would want us to provide, we definitely can. We just couldn't fit everything into this report because it was always getting very long and we had to start narrowing it down. But we do have all that information available for you.
And just one caveat, though, with regards to the survey, I think it is important to note that only 6% of the workforce actually responded to the survey, so you have to be worried about how much do you extrapolate from those responses. And I understand that one of the reasons for the low response rate was because the union was encouraging the employees not to fill out the survey. And so for whatever reason, I think, it's helpful for us to get as much information from the rank and file officers directly. And so that's why I think, I appreciate the Inspector General's attempts to really get to talking with and hearing directly from officers so that we know what they're facing, so that when we are actually considering policy changes, that we have kind of a balanced approach. And so hopefully in the future, if there are other, issues in which, employees are being surveyed to try to come up with better policies, that everyone participates and takes ownership over that. But I appreciate the Inspector General's attempts at getting that direct information. And I have spoken to some, female officers on patrol who indicate not only even just operationally, like if you're out on a scene, but just sometimes feeling pressure of how, what do I tell my partner or whatever, and almost like prohibiting themselves from doing it. And I think, this is where, we at least have the right policies in place, but we need to work on the culture that makes the policies actually come to life and are appropriate, and making sure that people understand that that is something that they can and should do and take advantage of, and that you can, be a mom on the job or, any kind of primary caretaker. But I appreciate all the work by the Inspector General's office. And with that, I would move that we approve the Inspector General's report. Is there a second? Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 4F, the department's report relating to cannabis enforcement and staffing needs.
Good morning, Commissioners, City Attorney, and Mr. Inspector General. I'm Captain Ahmad Zarakani, Commanding Officer of Gang and Narcotics Division. On January 28th of 2026, the Public Safety Committee requested that the department report on the current cannabis enforcement practices and requested recommendations for additional staffing or resources needed to address illegal cannabis operations and strengthen the regulated market within the city of Los Angeles. Cannabis Support Unit operating out of Gang and Narcotics Division oversees the cannabis-related enforcement in the city. The CSU works closely with the Department of Cannabis Regulation, Department of Water and Power, Department of Building and Safety, and LA Fire Department to shut down unlicensed cannabis operations. This multi-agency collaboration ensures that enforcement addresses both criminal activity and related safety hazard within the community. If you look at our report, we covered how we did the cannabis enforcement. We went back almost 6 or 7 years, but I'm going back to probably 10, 15 years ago when I was a lieutenant in GND. We used to have a whole section. There was a lieutenant too. There was different squads. I mean, they did their own surveillance, search warrants, and takedown operation of the illegal and unlicensed cannabis locations. Due to retirements and transfers, and Gang and Narcotics Division currently doesn't have that section. That section was totally eliminated. And what we came up with was having a unit to coordinate between various divisions and other city entities. That was the CSU that I referred to earlier. CSU itself at one point had, I believe it was 7 or 8 people. It was a small unit just to coordinate the efforts. There's only one person left there, and that's the civilian analyst. So I looked at this stat. We included the stats going back to 2021. If you look on page 2, it's all in red. I mean, pretty much, to be honest, there is no enforcement regarding the illegal locations, illegal unlicensed cannabis locations. And that's the reason we have so many locations or pop-up locations that are basically next to a location that has a license, paying their taxes, obeying by city regulation and state regulations. They basically put a tent and a table and a couple of chairs and start selling illegally. To address that, we came up with the best solutions that we thought we can do based on the current circumstances, which is lack of personnel and also lack of budgetary constraints. So to do that, in this report, we're recommending having a dedicated overtime fund for particularly enforcement at illegal and unlicensed cannabis locations. And having the primary responsibility for that assigned to our net units, geographical areas. However, Gang and Narcotics Division, if we can build up the CSU to at least to have that coordination level between our supervisors and their net units and the outside units and entities that we regularly work with. Because right now our major narcotics section in Gang and Narcotics Division is pretty much exclusively working regarding big cartel cases and organized crime. So we really don't have any type of resources to dedicate to unlicensed and illegal cannabis locations. That concludes my report, and I'm available to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. I'll ask Commissioner Scobin for any questions.
Thank you for the report. I'm curious, how active, or do we know how active the DEA or existing task force are within the city with regard to illegal cannabis enforcement, and whether we track those numbers?
So DEA does not do any enforcement regarding illegal cannabis locations. They do give us a fund, I believe it's $325,000 a year as the overtime budget to work the illegal grows that are connected to major organized crime, and it has to be connected to something bigger. And we have significant number of grows in San Fernando Valley, I mean, huge. And that's what we're concentrating on with the funds that we get from DEA, and that's a task force that's set up through DEA with our officers.
And so, the reality is pretty dire in this situation. And I guess, I would ask you, what is the message for a legal operator, who's doing everything right, who, frankly, may even be aware of illegal locations? Is there anything they should be doing or could be doing to support, you and the team recognizing that resources are virtually non-existent?
Last year, I was in a meeting that was at the city council, and there was a large number of legal licensed cannabis location business owners, and their attorneys were there, and all those concerns were brought up to the city council. And there was a lot of discussions. I actually testified in front of the council, and really, if we want to do this, because we do have the business model, go to other cities, I'm talking about the smaller towns or even bigger towns, they don't have as many illegal locations as we do, because their departments have a zero tolerance for it. And they have dedicated, even here in LA County, you have small towns that have dedicated force that anytime they see an illegal, unlicensed location, they immediately hit it. But they have the opportunity to have the resources to dedicate to that purpose. Here, we have a violent crime for us is the priority. Like my division, we're concentrating on violent crimes, organized crimes, cartels, homicide suspect. That's what we really work on. So we don't have the luxury of dedicating the resources that we used to 15 years ago or even 10 years ago.
It's sad to hear. You know, it's something that has such an impact on, you know, communities and quality of life. You know, wish we could find a way. It's hard to accept, you know.
I think if the city council wants to do something about this, the recommendations we have is putting a dedicated funding for this. If it's important to them, and I think it is because they ask us for this report, if they give us a dedicated funding that we can direct towards to the net units in Office of Operations and coordinate it at GND, I think we will be able to at least get some results to get this to a point at least it's under control. Because I look at the stats today from DCR, they're talking about somewhere around 100 illegal locations, but I think actually the numbers are bigger. And when you really look into it, this is the 100 complained of or reported, not the actual number. Because we don't even have code enforcement or building and safety driving around looking at these unlicensed locations and generating a report, which other cities code enforcement will do that.
And my last question is, you know, to what extent can or should patrol units in each area be involved with this enforcement?
We do not recommend that because it really needs a specialty. Because even if you want to go to the location, they can tell you, don't enter my location. They have security, right? So we need to do undercover operations to prove we have buy from a location that doesn't have a license, then go to a court. A judge needs to sign a warrant, then authorize us to go to the location and seize the cannabis, and all these locations have firearms in them. Every location we hit, there are firearms at these locations. So it's not something that patrol can handle.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tabor.
Yes, thank you for the report and the detail. It raises some questions. Your last comment really brings me back to a question of the department. The department started with 4 detective supervisors, 2 investigators, and from the very beginning had and administrative staff as well. But from the very beginning had impact, had a defined mission. How has that given the retirement impact on the department? Was there a projection that there would as time went on, projection that other officers would need to be trained to be able to take over these roles as folks retired out? Or are we finding ourselves now needing not only to fill the positions, but to also educate a new crop of individuals to perform these functions?
So in this report, sir, we don't want to go too much into details. We give you basically from 2020 to present. That's when basically we got rid of that whole section that was doing this. We had a whole section dedicated to it that did everything from A to Z in-house. And this is back when GND was probably 3 times bigger than the size that it is now. So when you talk about the 4 detectives, and basically we had bureau coordinators to coordinate the enforcement with the net units, OO, and outside entities. But those individuals all take promotional exam, promote, or they retire. As a matter of fact, just this past 2 months, I had 3 people retired. So, and as people retire and move on, and we don't, because of issues we have with the resources and lack of personnel, we're not able to replace those positions. Those positions basically go away. And you can see just the unit that was CSU that was coordinating at one time had 7 people is now 1 civilian who's basically gathering data and creating a stats.
Yeah, they're building the department again. So you described the process, so it sort of caught me out that the enforcement is not just identifying a location, but it's actually doing the physical investigation. And before you can do any interdiction activity, you just described that you need to first go through the process of getting a warrant and then coming back in service. My question is, so in the time that it takes to do that, is there continued surveillance on the side? How do you ensure that what you witnessed on Tuesday while you get that warrant doesn't disappear by Wednesday morning and, the efforts are fruitless?
So it's a lot more involved than that. You're right. So you have to do your undercover buy operations. Okay. Then they're pretty savvy because they have access to attorneys who basically train these individuals who are running these operations. Mm-hmm. So they create a lease agreement and sublease agreement, so you can never lock down who's actually in control of the property. So you need to do bank search warrants to find out who paid the rent, who received the rent. So it's a lengthy process that you need to bring financial analysts, you need to bring your undercover operators to do their operations, you need to extensive surveillance, where they're going, where they're coming from, where their products come from. So it's a lot involved. Just take down one location, it can take hundreds of hours of surveillance, multiple detectives, multiple units. And after you take them down, it's incredible. The following week, someone else, a different person shows up at the same location, has the setup. So that's the reason we bring LAFD building and safety. We lock the locations, we do board ops. And the DWP cut their power, and then following week they bring a generator. And they put a generator, and that's how they're operating. So now you have to go get a warrant so you can seize the generator. So it's very complex to just put one location. And the reason for it is now they've been here for so long and they make so much money that it's part of doing business for them. And the other part of it is, I think, is lack of justice system holding him accountable, because we make hundreds of arrests, right? So last year the city council asked us to look into the consequences of it. The consequences of it was a vast majority of cases weren't filed by the city attorney or district attorney. And the ones that were filed, they plea bargained a $250 fine, which they paid immediately.
I'm just amazed at I'm looking at your impacts over the 4 years, and with 7 people in the city of this size.
Yes.
Imagining what really was out there was missed or couldn't be completed just simply because of the human resources available. I appreciate your effort and work and look forward to supporting.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the city has an entire department of cannabis regulation, right? And I feel like there are times when we hear from, the city family about, reducing the footprint of law enforcement, or, these are some tasks I think that you just described can be done by a different department, especially if there's an entire department that focuses on cannabis regulations, right? Like, here's the list of authorized, authorized vendors. Everything else is not authorized, right? Like, even just doing the footwork to identify where locations are that are operating, a lot of that doesn't necessarily need a sworn personnel to do that work. And so I think coming up and being creative of what are other groups that can potentially help do some of that work, because I don't think we're getting any new bodies to focus on this. There are other tactics as well that can be used, and it sounds like there is some shell games going on, but identifying landlords of these individuals, sending them a letter. A police officer never needs to be involved. Sending a letter from the city attorney's office saying, your property is being used for illegal drugs. It will be subject to forfeiture, right? Like, there are, put it on the landlord to fight back, or for the law-abiding, businesses, they can bring private actions against these folks for unfair competition, unlawful competition, right? Like there are other things other than just putting every problem at the hands of the department to fix when there are other entities that could do some of it. And I do think that, Chief, it may be worth a conversation with the federal partners on this, particularly if there is a list of here are the locations that we believe are not subject to any kind of city, state sanction. They are running illegal drugs. Will you do something? And they have a bigger hammer than the city. So it may just be worth that conversation to see if it's something that they can prioritize to help send the message here.
Happy to have the conversation. Sure.
Thank you. And thank you for your work. It seems like it is, and it sounds always very simple. We'll just go after it. But thank you for explaining some of the additional process that it takes, particularly if you're trying to get like the criminal enforcement, which is what the police are here for. It's for criminal enforcement. But again, there are other civil remedies that can be done separate and apart from the department being the only solution here. So hopefully there will be kind of a collaboration of efforts to think through how to eliminate all of these unlawful entities. With that, I would move that please.
Just one last question. You had mentioned that there's a direct relationship between cannabis activity and violent and other crimes. I'm curious, even if the money was secured somehow, with the personnel shortage and so many unfilled positions, even when there is outside funding, where would the physical officers come from to fill this team?
So, good question. That would be on overtime basis. We're basically asking Office of Operation NED units set up details, basically to be assigned a target location, and they use those resources by the funding for bringing detectives and officers on overtime basis for their surveillance, for their operations, for getting the search warrant, for service of the search warrants, and all the follow-ups. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. With that, I move that we approve the department's report and take the recommended board action. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you for the presentation and the information.
Thank you, ma'am.
Moving to item 4G, the department's report relative to 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games police vehicle procurement.
Good afternoon, President Shields, President Tabor, Commissioner Scobin, Chief McDonald, Inspector General Barragan, our City Attorney Carlos de la Guerra, and everyone here in attendance. My name is Commander Mario Mota, and I am the Commanding Officer of Major Events Group, and I am here with my partner, Captain Shannon White, who is the Assistant Commanding Officer of Major Events Group, and together we are overseeing the department's overall planning and security efforts for the 2028 Olympic and the Paralympic Games. The department's planning efforts have been underway for well over 6 years now, with portions of the plan already in the implementation phases. For context, the Games will see our department mobilize for approximately 3 months and see thousands of law enforcement officers deployed across 8 Olympic venues daily across all 4 of our geographic bureaus. The city will have the following venues: Expo Sports Park, the Downtown LA Sports Park, Dodger Stadium, Riviera Country Club, NBC Universal, Venice Beach, the Sepulveda Basin, and the UCLA Athlete Village. In partnership with the United States Secret Service and the Executive Steering Committee members that were formed as a result of the Games being designated as a national special security event, a robust and comprehensive public safety plan has been developed to keep the Games safe for the athletes, the spectators, the visitors, and the thousands of impacted Angelenos that will be impacted by the Games. The Games have been described as the largest sporting event in global history, and that is not to be taken lightly. It is not a Super Bowl or FIFA. This is the biggest thing that any of us will ever see in our lifetime. which will require a coordinated public safety plan. Most venue perimeters will span for several square miles that will require many resources, including the need for patrol vehicles assigned to each venue. So when I discuss like the Expo Park venue, we're talking about the Coliseum, the Galen Center, and BMO Stadium. The downtown LA area is the Convention Center, Crypto, and the Peacock. All of those areas are going to be enclosed in a perimeter. That's how large these venues will be. So to effectively cover all of our games venues, the LAPD will need almost 900 black and whites and many resources, including the need for patrol vehicles assigned to each venue each and every single day. As mentioned, we will be deployed for approximately 3 months at these venues. The vehicles will be used for operational responses and not part of any transport assets. They will provide rapid response inside venue perimeters, serve as mobile squads, roving patrols, patrolling the game's route networks, which will be throughout the LA region. They will be used for traffic and perimeter controls and arrestee transport and for high visibility patrols. As part of the 2026-2027 budget, 300 black and white vehicles were requested by the department, along with 107 non-patrol vehicles to support game operations, along with other Olympic-related asks. Some of our Olympic-related package across the street at City Council was supported, while others were not. I will now pass it on to my partner, Captain White, to discuss the City Council file in front of you regarding the 300 black and whites and the 107 MECLA-funded vehicles.
Great. So thank you so much for that. And thank you, commissioners, for your time on this. I know that this is the first time that we've come to you presenting about the games, and so we're happy to answer any broader questions you may have that are related to this. This report specifically is to address our vehicle request that was part of the current fiscal year that we are in. It was part of that budget request. There were some challenges that we faced in having it approved when we were in front of council, and I think that is partially because for them during the budget process, that was the first time they were hearing from the department about what the overall safety footprint was going to look like for the games. Prior to that point, they were largely hearing from the organizing committee, LA 28, which is not the lead entity for this public safety planning for the games. That is actually the Secret Service as a partner with us and the NSSC structure that oversees safety and security for the games. So insofar as they had not previously heard it, I think there were some surprises about the scope and scale of the games. I appreciate the commander outlaying the fact that this is the largest pre-planned event that we have seen in modern history. And even when we speak about the perimeters around the venues, it's not specifically the venues themselves that pose the greatest challenge in terms of this outlay of fleet. It is the larger security perimeter that expands well beyond that. And so when you look at that, when you expand beyond just the venue itself to the surrounding neighborhoods, we are looking at ways to ensure that officers that are LAPD officers are the ones that are responding there, so that when there are calls for service and you need an officer to be there, that it's someone from LAPD who is taking the report, that it is our detectives that are investigating it, and that it's our personnel that will then be appearing in court later. We're looking to try to make sure that we are not having unintended consequences by then outsourcing that role to other partner agencies. As the commander touched on, the scope and scale of this requires thousands upon thousands of officers per day within the city of Los Angeles to help support game safety. So we certainly will need partners to assist us, but we consider it a critical function that the response vehicles are filled with LAPD personnel. Insofar as if this isn't approved, this is something where we will have to look at how our response time shifts. Because it will be challenging for the outside units from the surrounding patrol divisions to get in. We can recognize that there will be a lot of traffic moving towards those venues, and our desire is to make sure that our response times meet the regular standard. Our commitment to the city of Los Angeles is regardless of if you are outside the impacted area or within it, that you will still see the same standard of service. So insofar as that's what we're seeking, the 300 vehicles do support that. As the commander outlaid, they are not transportation vehicles. We had some challenges in making sure that we clearly communicated that during the budget and finance process. It's not something that we can do differently by getting buses, using vans. We really do need these vehicles in order to conduct that high visibility patrol, have our response capabilities. Insofar as we are trying to find means to do this in an economical fashion, we were instructed to report back on the option of leasing black and white vehicles, which is something the city has not previously done. So we had to explore looking at what does it look like to lease 300 vehicles at once for a city of this size. I'm very grateful to our partners at the CAO, CLA, City Attorney, and our Commanding Officer of Motor Transport Division, Gregory Field, who have been in a number of meetings in order to explore this option. Right now, the financing mechanism doesn't seem like it's going to be viable. The CAO is still working on seeing if they can find a way to bring the financing rate down to what the city is expecting. Alternatively, and what you will see as the recommended option in this report, is to use MICLA funding, which is a standard funding process through the city, and using dual-purpose vehicles. So dual-purpose vehicles are the police explorers, but they are plain. They are not the black and whites. They do not have the light bar on top. We would upfit them to have an emergency package, and so in that way they would look similar to what you see for commanding officers' cars. They have the equipment available inside, but otherwise to the public would look like a gray or black Explorer. For the games, we would intend to put some sort of seal on them and also do public messaging to make sure the public understood that those are department vehicles. We recognize that there are concerns about if those are federal enforcement vehicles, and so we'd be specifically looking to delineate that those belong to the department. Post games, regardless of which route we go, these vehicles will be a financial offset for the following fiscal year. So 28-29, the department would not order replacement fleet in whatever category we went with, whether it's black and whites or the dual purpose. So we're hopeful that that will help alleviate some of the concerns that council has about the financial constraints that this puts the city in asking to order the vehicles. We're not looking to expand the overall fleet, but to order it in advance so that it is ready for the games. For this report, time is of the essence. The council did ask that we report back by August 1st. They will be returning from recess shortly. We do need to have the purchase for the vehicles in by the end of September. These vehicles take approximately 18 months to arrive and then need time with our mechanics in order to be properly fitted for the field use. And then moving on to the 107 non-patrol and specialized vehicles, those were actually approved in the budget cycle. Those vehicles are things, as Commander outlined, like transport vans, additional dual-purpose vehicles. Some of them are heavy-duty trucks that will help move equipment, and those are replacing fleet that is already past its service life. That's a constant concern that we have with the department. Post-2020, we had a number of fleet orders that were either canceled or otherwise not approved, and so that means that we have a significant amount of aging fleet within the department. We are looking to use this as a one-for-one replacement. Again, it is not an expansion of our fleet, but merely making sure that we have a readiness for the games to be able to provide those support vehicles that will then make sure that the officers that are out in the field, their command posts, their staging areas are properly ready, and then also things like fuel trucks in order to support the daily operations. Ultimately, we are looking for the support not just of this commission, but also council in order to move this forward so that we can complete our games planning. We have a very robust plan for the games. We understand what we need for equipment. We've tried to be judicious in what we are requesting, but we are at the point where we are looking for clear yeses and nos so that we can then discuss what our options are with our other safety partners, and then make clear for people in and around those venues what it may look like and how that may be different on a day-to-day basis. So with that said, those are kind of the high points of the report, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you both for that report. I'll ask Commissioner Tabor for any questions.
Thank you. And thank you for your report and the detail. And the first question that came to mind as I began to read through the report is, will this, while the budget comes from your assessment and analysis of the Los Angeles Police Department, is the Los Angeles Council Committee responsible for coordinating with the Olympics, seeing this budget as an inclusion of what would either be a public cost or would be a cost borne by the organizing committee?
Yeah, so when it comes to public safety costs, that's a challenge that we faced in looking at what's reimbursable. The overall budget for the 2028 games did not include any funding source for safety. So whereas other city departments have opportunities for direct reimbursement from the organizing committee, public safety entities do not. We are looking for the Big Beautiful Bill, One Big Beautiful Bill, so OB3 has $1 billion set aside for it. What we determined as we were going through this last budget process and calculating what we know our outlay will be for resources is that the police department on its own could exhaust the $1 billion if it was full cost recovery. And so there are certainly financial challenges, and I think that is kind of the hesitation for the city, is looking to see what our award letter will be from that, to see if that money will expand in order to be more what is needed to support not just the city but the region. Our challenge, again, is the timeline in this. We can't wait until award letters go out to make decisions that are critical to then determining what the safety posture is. And so it is currently a request that we're seeking the city to fund with our intention to then be able to submit for reimbursement if feasible. We don't currently know or truly believe that it will be an option. Our opinion after talking to FEMA is that it will largely just be staffing is what any funding will go toward. And so equipment is something that the city will bear the cost of. But again, this is an offset. While we may order more vehicles in one fiscal year than in the impacted fiscal year of 28-29, we would not be requesting that same order of fleet replacement.
So and I think your comment there answers my next question was how much of what we acquire to meet this responsibility will be replacing aged vehicles and
all of it.
So,
yes, exactly. And so that is maybe the only gift of having such aging fleet is that we can certainly say this becomes a one-for-one replacement. There's a true need within the department to keep the fleet replacement process moving, and this will just help expedite it.
And then for context, like our black and whites out there right now, 52% of them have reached their end of life cycle, 52%. And overall, our entire fleet is at 46%. That needs to be replaced.
I have no further questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Scobin.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'd like to start for the record that my employer will not be bidding on these vehicles. So I just want to make that clear. As I understand it, MICLA funding involves issuance of bonds. What is the anticipated interest rate on the bonds, and is that passed on to the department?
So insofar as what those rates are, we would have to speak with the CAO directly for those kind of details. But it becomes part of the department's budget award for the year. But MICLA funding is something that is standard for the dual purpose vehicles. The black and white vehicles do not qualify under MICLA under the current funding guidelines. And so that was where a lot of the challenges came for us in the budget and finance process, is that they were initially in the proposed budget slated to be MICLA funded. So this is our effort at readdressing that and finding something that is compliant with the funding guidelines.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much for the report, and understand that this is just additional information that the city council needed, and these have already been kind of gone through the commission's review and in terms of budgeting. So appreciate that, and I would move that we approve the department's report and take the recommended board action. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you all. And the commission will now recess into closed session to discuss items 5A and 5B. The commission has returned from closed session, and I'll ask Madam Secretary to please report on the closed session items.
Thank you, Madam President. As it relates to item 5A1, law enforcement related injury 039-25, the commission discussed and adopted the recommendations as follows by a 3-0 vote. For tactics, tactical debrief, 2 sergeants 1, 7 police officer 2, 1 police officer 1, and administrative disapproval 1 detective 2. For non-lethal use of force, in policy, no further action, 2 sergeant 1, 1 detective 2, 7 police officer 2, and 1 police officer 1. For item 5A2, OIS 041-25, the commission voted the recommendations as follows. For tactics, tactical debrief, 3 sergeants 1, 1 police officer 3, 1 police officer 1, and administrative disapproval 1 police officer 2. For drawing and exhibiting, in policy, 1 police officer 3, 1 police officer 2, and 1 police officer 1. For lethal use of force, in policy, no further action, 1 police officer 2 for round 1, and out of policy, 1 police officer 2 for round 2. For item 5A3, officer involved shooting 042-25, the commission adopted the following recommendations by a 3-0 vote. For tactics, tactical debrief, 1 police officer 2, administrative disapproval 1 sergeant 1, For drawing and exhibiting, in policy, no further action, 1 Sergeant 1, 1 Police Officer 2, and for lethal use of force, in policy, no further action, 1 Police Officer 2. And that was by 3-0 vote. Moving on to 5B1 for complaint file number 25-002537, the item was discussed. And for 5B2, complaint file number 25-003385, the matter was adjudicated. And that concludes the report out. Madam President?
And thank you. And I think you said it for all of them that the vote was 3-0, but just in case there was anyone that was missed, wanted to make sure that was on the record. And with that, I move to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second? Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, and meeting is adjourned.